tap out, to groove. The psychedelic jackets on the record albums have their own hidden soul.
This is a special question. We don't want you to smoke genetically modified plants. We want you to smoke the real thing. We want you to smoke the natural herb. Some call it marijuana, some call it sensimilla, some call it lamb's bread, and some people call it ganja.
Welcome to another edition of the Adam Dunn Show. I am your host, Adam Dunn, and my co-host today, I would call him.
Co-host?
Yeah, you're officially co-host now.
Snap.
I just did that.
Whoa.
You didn't even know.
Practically every one of the top 40 records.
You can tell the kids back on the fucking Wheels of Steel right there. That's obvious. I got my buddy Danny over here. Crucial Creations, Danny. If anybody out there who knows me long enough would probably know him too, because legend. You don't even know it. That's the best part. You're like the Mr. Magoo of legends. You have no idea. You're like, what? He's going to be the co-host / sidekick for just today, just one day. Luckily,
Honored to do it, buddy.
great. And then the actual guest, yeah, actually somebody who's known me since I was about 2 years old, or even longer. So it was very cool to get to sit down because I haven't actually got to physically sit down in front of you since that time. And he's got some great old stories that connect us back to something that we keep, some of our listeners are directly connected to, and some of them, we definitely want to know about. But it was a whole brotherhood story from Laguna Beach area back in the day. And but he also has some other stories, I think, that we can delve into that'll be pretty interesting from from that time period when things were a little bit different. It was this indoor scene wasn't happening. Local weed was a dream at that point, and we were reliant on all these countries that were producing awesome products. So it's going to be interesting. We're calling him Mr. Chars, Mr. K, Mr. Chars. We'll come up with whatever you want. We'll see, however far this story goes. But what we're going to do out of the gate, because I know these kind of shows because they end up turning into like you can't stop the story. So I'm going to do all my sponsors right out of the gate. So that's done, and then we can do that at the end of the show. So we can just kind of let this thing roll out, because I have a feeling once I let this guy loose a little bit.
Look out, baby.
Look out. Yeah, this is going to go. This is going to get weird. And also, we might forget who the hell our sponsors are by the middle of this show.
What? You had sponsors? I didn't.
We have sponsors, yeah. That's how this show runs.
All right.
It's a real show. It's a real show with real sponsors. So, kid, we're going to do the sponsors right out of the gate. Get it over
Right
with.
now?
Yeah,
Alright,
just because I know.
Real quick. Are we starting with Way to Grow?
We are starting with
All
Way
right,
to
do
Go.
it up.
We
Real
are
quick.
starting
I
real
gotta
quick.
go.
You got to go. Oh, man.
My puppy's got appointments, bro.
My. It was exactly the way to start. For the day you left, it hasn't changed. If you get on the mic.
Except actually today it
something-
sounds good and looks good, so that's the difference.
Okay. We had a few good days. We had a few. Last week was good. People weren't complaining too bad. Way to Grow, 7 locations all over Colorado. These guys have everything you need, from growing to making concentrates, which very few other shops will get you any of those kind of products. My favorite location, 1051 Platte River, 20,000 square feet, right down in the middle of, oh no, not the music, right down in the middle of Denver. But they've got shops everywhere, Boulder.
Anybody can
up in the mountains, up in Silverthorne. Is the latest
dedicate
shop.
some space in their
and
yard
you can always go to
to
waytogrow.net.
growing good,
They have a
healthy
really good
food,
website
not
with
only
a
for
great
themselves,
soundtrack that the kid loves. He's
but
been missing
providing
for a long
food
time.
to others.
It's been a while since I've heard that jam.
Right? That jam got you going.
Incredibles?
And they also got just great. They used to do delivery, but not anymore. I don't think. Don't even mess around with delivery.
Candy Bro.
Candy Bro, I know, and they have the best candy. The kid usually eats it all.
And they've been getting good selection. They had the Hershey's Minis recently,
Did
and I
they?
was really happy with that. Yeah.
Well,
I was going
forget
to buy
about
some
Hershey's
lab
Minis.
coats.
We're talking Incredible.
Incredibles all day.
Not
though.
the Incredible show, that's for sure. We're not talking about. We're talking about Incredibles edibles and Incredible concentrates, which are I love Incredibles. You know what? I love Incredibles.
I was gonna say they changed their website.
Yeah,
again.
it's I love
Jesus Christ.
Incredibles.com.
How many times are they going to
There
change the
you
name of their
go.
website? There you go,
The most
Incredibles.
consistent edibles here in Colorado, now also in Nevada, and I think they're Cali soon, San Francisco, I believe. So right now is they still got they still got those things left over.
Yeah,
from the,
my favorite.
yeah, of course, because it's got Pop Rocks in it.
I just like white
But
chocolate.
you can't say Pop Rocks. You gotta say popping candy.
Popping candy, popping
Popping
bits.
Can't say candy either because
But
it's
it's
kids.
okay. It's bomb. Oh
You
yeah,
wanna
I guess
Can't say
kids.
candy. Yeah, I don't want to say
Popping
candy.
pieces.
Popping pieces of things.
But it's the best tasting bar. The white chocolate's really good, and it tastes like birthday cake is what that one really tastes like. But they have the monkey bar, the boulder bar, the strawberry crunch, blueberry bliss, fireberry is bomb, afgado bomb. 2 different flavors, chocolate and white, depending on if you get it 500 or 300 or 100 milligrams.
And they're all labeled, which is awesome. That's
Which
the
is
best
great.
part.
Each
So
chunk.
each little piece has got a
Perfect.
number on it of what the milligrams is. So even if you open the bar and you're all, because that's the problem is once you open it, who knows what it is. These guys, they got it down.
Do you know what they use to grow their weed? They don't use builder soil, do they?
No,
They should.
They should because
They
it's
should.
the best organic source of soil amendments here in Colorado, and they ship everywhere, which is awesome. And that's the funny thing. I always forget that people just keep ordering stuff, because you always think soil, you're going to really order it on the line. That's kind of weird. But he'll do it, and he'll get it. Anything from 1 bag up to 30,000 bags, it's no problem. So these guys,
I like to order it on the truck, as
Yeah.
as opposed to on the line.
on the line.
You don't order it on the line.
Oh, on the truck.
I order things online.
online, whatever. I throw those in there
It's a
whenever
very
I feel.
thin line,
Thin line,
and you've
exactly.
crossed it.
I do that a lot.
But yeah, builder soil. We're gonna be
Sure.
using them in our Pennsylvania if everything goes well. So
Nice. In your Pennsylvania.
yeah.
See, now I'm going to
Now,
correct your English.
now you got me doing
I'm going
it.
to correct your English
Son
now.
of a
So
bitch.
you
So
actually own Pennsylvania.
Yours-
I didn't realize that.
Yours pretty close to Pittsburgh. If you've been to your
Your.
Oh yeah, York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I seen the Dead there back in the 80s.
I bet you did.
So builder soil, check them out. Buildersoil.com.
BuildASoil.com and
custom
855-877-SOIL if you want to talk to them direct. And Jeremy has the best customer service of any company I've ever seen. By the way.
They can help you grow your seeds here now
They can help you grow your seeds here now.
from seedsherenow.com.
Seeds here now. Seeds here now. Seeds here now. Best.
They can make it happen.
Come on, let's do it. You up there?
It was
Did you
great,
pop
man.
Did you pop it up?
James,
Did you pop it up?
I'm a big fan of James after the Emerald Cup. I think
bet.
he helped me up a lot, and he's got some good genetics, man. He's got the best of the best. It's not.
Well, it's all American breeders. That's
Right.
the thing. He doesn't have a lot of he doesn't have any European breeders. It's all American, which is cool because it's kind of like
Look at that list.
It's a renaissance now. Everybody's getting on board. A lot of these guys have been doing it for 20, 30 years. Now they finally got a footing in a real industry, which is here.
And again, like I said, the top name genetics. I mean, just the one exotic, Mosca,
Mota Rebel.
Mota's on there, Dark Horse, Loud Seeds, TH Seeds,
Oh my
of
God,
course.
who are those guys?
Gas is on there, Brothers Grimm, Obsolete and Sonny Chiba, Crockett. I mean, they got
Unknown Prophet.
everything on here. It's
I
wild.
like that, right? He's
Golden
good.
Coast, they got some of on here.
He
Top
was the first
Dog.
guy to have a Gorilla Glue
Swamp
permission
Boys?
to do Gorilla Glue. That Unknown Prophet guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was like when nobody he was really one of the first. So
Well, there you go.
yeah, I got some of his best ones. They were
So
dope.
go check them out. Seedsherenow.com.
They got a bunch of specials, which we'll pull up later at the last part of the show because my phone's not ready right now, so not ready.
Is that all of them?
No, it's not all of
There's
them.
more
Come
now?
on, man.
Who now?
Come on. I don't know. Let's see who we got.
That's all of them.
Did you see the seeds?
Yeah.
There was one the seeds. Did you see that one?
Which one? The seeds? That's us, man.
TH seeds.
Seeds.
Seeds. That's the Spanish. That's the Spanish version.
You good?
Seeds.
All right, I'm out.
You're out. You're out.
I'm out, show.
You're out.
Peace. My head's in the way, probably.
Oh yeah, we forgot Millennium. That's who we forgot. New Millennium. I knew somebody was there. I was like, wait a minute, we have somebody. New Millennium, who's coming on next week. Next week with a giveaway of their newest products, which are going to be their foliar, which is dynamic, and their carbo load. It's New Millennium. I think it's newmillenniumnutrients.com. You can check that out. Maybe might be that. But we'll have them on the show next week, along with an incredible show lined up. And I won't even say it till the end of the show because it'll just make everybody forget about what's going on. They'll be like, I'm freaking out. So we'll announce the other guest end of the show. There it is. New Millennium right there. They have the thing about their line I've been using for about 2 years now, and what's really cool is it's four steps. They have their spring part, their summer, their fall, their winter. So you follow the seasons, which is obviously the way we should be growing anyway. But indoors, a lot of times people lose touch with the fact that they're in charge of what's going on. So this kind of puts you in the headspace where you're like, oh, okay, well, Now I'm in summer, so I know exactly where I'm at, or I'm in spring, so I know where I'm at, and you ramp it up in each category as you go along. But the other cool part is they have about, I think it's 9 parts, but you're never using more than 4 at a time. So it's all, and sometimes only 2 parts when you're doing, like, there's a product called Decision, which is awesome because that's when you decide to switch from space to space. So you're at that point, just slam them with Decision and a bunch of fulvic acid, and then the plants kind of get ready, and then boom, the next one comes in. So yeah, it's good product. I'm totally behind it, and we'll have them on next week with their 2 latest stuff. They're going to give away. They want to give away to everybody who really wants it. It's not going to be like one guy wins a bunch. You know, it's just going to be a whole bunch of small samples for everybody, and maybe we'll give out some larger samples because this stuff ain't cheap. That's for sure. Okay, now that was it. Whew. Oh, I forgot my last one. I know it was somebody. Growstone. Jesus Christ. I was like, the kid is so out of touch. He's making me lose my mind. Growstone's the most important one. Not the most important, but for me the most important because it's when I get to drink beer during the show. So I'm like, yeah, I get to drink a beer. Because Growstones are made out of glass. 100% recycled glass. And as far as a perlite substitute, you can't go wrong because it doesn't break down. Yeah, it doesn't break down. And also, you can use it, the bigger rocks, you can use them for drainage. And they got these really itty-bitty rocks that you use for keeping the gnats out.
The gnat mix.
Yeah, the gnat mix. And basically, if you look at that under a microscope, it's just a bunch of razor-sharp edges so the gnats can't get in there.
I just started
breed
using it
and
recently.
do, you know,
they don't like it.
They don't like it. They get cut to fuck. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't looking really nice. And they also have their pre-mixed cocoa mix there with the larger stones in it. And the cool part of that is that the stones aren't as they do float a little bit, but they don't nearly float as much as perlite. And with perlite, a lot of times you end up with a whole bunch of perlite at the top of the pot and a whole bunch of compacted soil down at the bottom. And it's like, well, that was in there to actually aerate it, not to float to the top and sort of just look pretty and be all white. You know what I mean? That's kind of what happens. But with these things, they actually kind of stay in their zone and don't float up as fast unless you overwater them all the time, that's when that stuff floats anyway. Most of the time, you got to slow your water down, everybody. It's like, if all your perlites to the top.
Growstone.
And you don't have to, and if you get away from those and you use Growstone, you can even get away with people not knowing that you're overwatering fast. You're watering too fast. That's one of the first things they look at. I'm like, geez, you guys water a little bit over too much, too fast.
Top number 1 mistake.
Exactly. And also, that's the thing tonight where I think everybody at this table has also been growing weed too. It's not just what we're talking about later in the show, but we're all been growing. We've all failed at gigantic projects together, not personally together, but I'm sure we've all done the same, had our failures and our successes. And I think that's one of the reasons why with all the sponsors that we work with, we're trying to get like really only stuff that, got knocked out.
I grew a killer crop of poison oak.
Did you? That sounds great.
It was awesome.
That sounds like a plan.
Good.
Did you actually have to grow it, or it just was there?
Well, I'm sure we helped.
Yeah. You cut it all up and spread it out, made clones in the air, like shredded them. Talk closer to the mic, mister.
It's great to burn it and inhale, actually.
Right? Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I've had that. Actually, a friend of mine had that where he was standing next to a big thing and they were burning it, and then he got it all inside. It was like, dude, that's the worst.
It's extremely purging.
Very bad. Did you actually have that happen?
Inside my mouth, on my
Yeah.
tongue. Yeah, it's a pretty much annually for a lot of folks in California and Oregon.
Like
Y'all know
people
what
are
I'm talking about out there? And certainly, you know where the first place it always winds up, right?
Where's that, Mystery Man?
This is an X-rated show.
It is now that you're on it. Now that you're my co-host / X-rated co-host, I should say. So, Mr. Chars,
Yeah.
tell us, and when you're talking, get kind of close to the mic because it's very locally sensitive. First question we usually like to ask everybody is, how'd you get into cannabis in general? Like, a lot of us, like myself, it's pretty obvious as I was growing up that I should probably get into this if it's around me all the time and things are, but you were from a generation that was definitely had to be more experimental to get even to that point.
I actually got into cannabis after taking some LSD, and I didn't know what LSD was at the time. I was 16, and it was on a sugar cube from Sandoz.
Okay, yeah.
And a friend had gotten it, and it started a whole cycle in my life.
So,
Plus, I-
LSD was your gateway drug to cannabis. That's good. That's a good angle. I mean, most people go the other direction, but that's definitely. And deduce and at 16 take. I mean, now it's crazy because when you get older and you start looking at kids that are 16, you're like, they're not ready for it. You know what I mean? They could, but I think at that point in time, because of the fact that there was no, I mean, it was all super clean, and you guys were talking about how many mics do you know was on that? Do you know how many mics were on that first?
no
Sugar Cube?
idea.
Probably a lot, because they were really doing some crazy dosing back in the day without realizing it, I think, or
Yeah,
were
and
realizing it.
And
but
it was pharmaceutical, and I mean, I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know anything about spiritual, unspiritual, and I disappeared in the light, and my whole life after that was kind of seeking to get back to that without the acid.
right? And then cannabis was, what kind of cannabis were you talking about? Like some...
Well, the first time I smoked, my girlfriend's boyfriend turned me onto a joint. And when I went to college, I went to Israel to study the Dead Sea Scrolls to get into like where I started smuggling, actually. And I ended up meeting a couple of Arabs in East Jerusalem. And they turned me on to Lebanese hash, which is basically what they smoke there.
So pretty
And they
much
made
to
a-
the source, not messing around. Not
Yeah.
like I smoked a joint in Central Park, got really high, and then I was like, seeking that high.
They made a pouch for me, and I put 6 pounds around my waist, and I had a big, overly oversized sweater, and flew back with it around my waist. This was before there were dogs at airports and stuff.
No, I know it's it's kind of why I was wanting you to
It
watch
was like
that.
1968 or something.
Midnight Express.
That's why I was saying to watch that Orange Sunshine movie, just because it was like they were showing how it was before there was any savvy. Nobody was thinking about any of that, so they were just like loading up duffel bags and throwing it on the plane and carrying the cash right through. And
Yeah.
I mean it's interesting how the whole that time period, because of the fact that there was no cell phones and they didn't have very good. I mean, the police were pretty much hokey at best. You know, what I mean?
We used to go to banks and get $500 worth of quarters, and we'd use different payphones for each conversation. We'd have use number 3 or we'd exchange when we saw each other. We'd exchange payphone numbers.
And you could call another payphone from a payphone in those days. It wasn't like now where you definitely payphones don't receive calls.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, all those little things.
Be at that phone near the Shell station at 4, next to the Wendy's or whatever.
Yeah. You're like exactly. Or like in Cheech and Chong when they're like, freak with basketball. They're in the car and they zip open the thing and they're looking. So it had to be, literally had to have eyes on it to make it even close to stick. You know what I mean? So, and nowadays, I mean, it's interesting because everybody gets more savvy as, I mean, now it's like people go through crazy means to move product, and because cannabis and stuff has made everybody kind of get away from that for the most part, even though it's still flowing. I mean, obviously with Coke and stuff, that's gonna just never ending, but with cannabis it's like we're kind of killing them when it comes to like them importing in any product, because it's like, what are you trying? Nobody here wants your stuff anymore. You know what I mean?
Well,
We're definitely
people
at
weren't growing back then.
Oh yeah, and the weed was much better. I mean, it was more real. It was closer to, it was the what we're looking for now. All the land races that we dreamed about. Most of those places have been adulterated by people coming down and saying, I got something better. Here's some Afghani, and then they kind of ruin the local Colombian gold or whatever was growing and locally that was, tried and true.
Colombian used to be kick-ass pot. So did Mexican.
It
Sensimilla.
looked a little different than what we're used to these days.
Lime
but
green, Michoacan, Oaxacan. I mean, it would get you stoned. It would be psychedelic, the sativas. You don't see that anymore.
Well, the homogenization is kind of in both how they look and how they affect. You know what I mean? So, like right now, what's happening is we got weed that looks maybe better, like bag appeal and growth appeal and like
THC content and all that, but the cannabinoids are different.
Yeah, we've recombined them to the point where they're getting very similar. So we have these similar vibes, and so when you get an extreme sativa, good, like we were talking about last night about hazes and stuff, like when you get that kind of itchy palm nervousy kind of twitchy thing where you kind of like start looking around. It's like uncomfortable, but yet effective. You know what I mean? It's got this thing like it's working. There's definitely no doubt about it. That weed is getting you super high, and at that same point, you're a little bit like not even sure if I like.
And it's totally different than what we're getting these days. When you go to one of these producer countries, and you find, you're out on the street. You haven't maybe smoked because you had international flight, long international flight, but you're used to smoking some of this homegrown here, or you have a grow, and it's all over, all around, but. After a good bunch of hours on a flight of, going through the customs of these, strange countries.
First hit of any weed gets you really buzzed.
You find some stuff that might look like nearly a bag of dirt, full of squash seeds, that are exploded and stuff from whatever transportation from wherever it was grown to wherever you're buying it in whatever weird Asian city. Tastes a lot like a burning rug, actually. You're like, what? What the heck is this? But trip balls, hello, whoa, and then you're in Asia on top. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah, then you're looking out the window, you're all nervous. And I even noticed that my own weed didn't get me as high when I was traveling as the local weed. You know what I mean? Even though I knew my weed was stronger, I was so used to it that I'd be somewhere else and I'd be smoking my own weed and I'd be like, it's good, but I'm not getting that. But then I would smoke something local, and it wouldn't be like I'd want to smoke that again. And even sometimes I'd go back and smoke it again. I'd be like, it didn't work. Like,
you might even have
it was that first moment in time, like your body got all confused. It was like, whoa, what the hell is this shit? This is crazy. And then after they're like, we've seen this. This is a
You're talking 4% THC probably, 5%, but with the entourage effect of whatever the hell else was going on down there in the tropics and with whatever this.
Well, it's also because it's also the terroir, and you're there, and you're like in it, and you're smoking stuff that was grown real close locally. You'll get some
somehow
super
land
buzz
race.
off that.
If you're smoking it where it's from, it's stronger than if you import it.
Right.
God only knows why.
Right, and you're like, I swear to God, when I was there, I was tripping balls, and then people are like, this
Sorry,
weed
guys.
blows.
I don't know what happened.
So you were on that first trip, and you. That was so it was unexpected. You weren't even planning on that. You were just kind of like there just to check it out.
It just happened.
And
I didn't plan on it at all.
And like you said, it went smooth. Everything was fine.
Yeah.
So it triggered something in your brain there at that point in time, or did you kind of like just?
I met a couple of people in Millbrook, New York, around Tim, when I was going to college, and I got a hold of one of them and flew out to California, and I had a contact through my girlfriend. She'd met this guy in a bar who was a manager at one of the major airports on the East Coast. And he said he could grab anything off of the airplanes that was sent freight. So I talked to this friend of mine who was in the Brotherhood. I wasn't, but I had friends in it. And he turned me on to someone in Pakistan who could load planes up with crates. They were sheet steel, sealed, and then just a wood crate around it. Mm-hmm. And inside the sheet steel was just 50, 60 pounds of hash.
So when you say sheet steel, was it like layers, like flat layers stacked, and you had it sort of cut out in the middle, or was it?
Yeah, it was cut out in the top.
Gotcha.
And then, we sealed the top, welded it shut, and inside it was just full of hash.
Right.
Wrapped in plastic, but no vac anything.
Yeah. No, but I mean, and it's amazing too, because the hash that ran through North America from all the way through the 80s, you know what I mean? Because it was always that same Afghan black packy border stuff that was just like so consistent to the point.
Occasional piece of gold stamp on it or something.
But so consistent to the point where it was like it didn't matter what state you were in, it was there. And
I actually took it a little bit step further. I had a contact. I went to Mazar-e Sharif and actually had the Afghans bring the sacks of pollen or
unpressed
to Peshawar, and they pressed it in Peshawar, like in the tribal area, and then the Pakistani army, who I paid off, would drive it down to Karachi, and then they'd bring it out on boats or send it on the airplane, depending on what I was doing.
Right. No, they and Kashmir and all these places that are like legendary as far as the I mean, at the time, I don't know about now. I mean, I'm sure a lot of these places are hard. You'll still always find good weed, and that's the thing is everywhere you go, if it's once there's a like a tourist based thing. I mean, not so much there, but like anytime it like turns popular, it's like just like Amsterdam was. I mean, when people came there, oh, I got better weed at home, and oh, I got a better contact. It's like, of course, because that's you've been working at it to get that. But now we're trying to deliver to the masses, and delivering to the masses is really hard to do on a consistent basis and make everybody happy and keep everything rolling. It's just like and now what happens is people who used to come to Amsterdam and complain about the weed and say they had better weed, now they own a dispensary, and other people come and go, oh, this weed sucks, I have better weed at home. So it's like a never-ending cycle of like, yeah, because now you're trying to grow thousands of plants, or you're trying to do large-scale production, which doesn't isn't very easy. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's easy to grow 100 plants, like really good, but to grow 5,000, 10,000. Did you ever do any large scale outdoor back in the day stuff like that, or were you ever like involved with any of the actual growing, or just?
I did growing in California, but not like to the level that they're doing now in Colorado.
Right. But I'm just saying, I'm thinking not so much America. I was thinking outside of America. If any on any adventures, or did you ever visit any large scale production stuff like?
Well,
besides, because I mean, like you did India a little bit, or
I lived in India 10 years.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, then you did a little India.
Wow.
Which
went up to valleys towards the source of the Ganga, about 5,000 to 7,000 feet, and the whole valley was pot plants.
Oh, yeah.
Did you do
but that stuff was psychedelic.
Did you learn how to rub,
I'll smoke
or you just
this, and this is what I'm smoking. Like
sure
homegrown hybrids.
Yeah.
But the effect isn't psychedelic. It just gets you. It's not the same. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, I mean, India has both great smoking plants and charas plants.
I believe it to be the homeland of psychoactive cannabis. Certainly.
Well, good. I'm glad you.
Well, the Hindu Kush has.
If you think so, then it must be. I mean,
yeah.
I couldn't think of a more perfect.
No, I have a direct source for the information.
But in general, yeah, the
Kerala has great looking pot. Funny wise,
the Kerala, there's a special variety in Kerala called the Idukki Dukki. It is Idukki. Idukki is a growing region in the Western Ghat on the border of Tamil Nadu, and it's very famous for cannabis that I think tastes a lot like haze. And if you look at the
remember the
Durbans-
Kerala skunk that Rob and Dave Watson made a long time ago? That was actually one of the better. It's one of the more racy plants. Like you'd smoke it and get a really.
And if you think about
buzz
the
off
East
it.
India Trading Company back in the day, with taking advantage of the poverty in India and using Indians to cultivate post-African slavery in the Caribbean and in the colonies in South Africa and whatnot. You have a migration of the seeds because these guys took their seeds with them. It was a holy plant for them. They needed it for special religious holidays and
like the Jamaican seeds that came from Ethiopia, the Rastafarian, the whole thing.
That as well as
Right.
being mixed in Jamaica, as well as with the Indian immigrant from the indentured workers that came with the British, like in the 1800s, I think, actually, is part of the tradition of it. Ganja, of course, as we know, you spoke of the Ganga, Upper Ganga. Well, ganja, of course, comes from there. The word is from the Holy Ganja.
I used to go up towards the
He's a
source of the
linguist on top
Ganga,
of everything.
Ganges, and spend maybe $25 and come out with like some, finger hash that was, I don't know, maybe a half kilo for $25, and it would last me all year. Yeah, it was so good.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think people now, because we actually have large amounts of cannabis too, which that was never really a thing in America. America's always been grow it and smoke it as fast as you can, basically turn over, move on, keep going. There wasn't really, I mean, you'd find a collector or two, but cannabis doesn't really age great. You know what I mean? Even if you're trying to take the best care of it possible, it's pretty much hard to keep it for more than a year and make it like presentable as what it was. But hash, 12-year-old hash, 15-year-old hash, you could especially when it was made with dry sieve and properly, and not, because that's the problem is now everybody's working with water. or they're doing solvents, and those things don't have a shelf life. That's one thing I can tell you from experience, is that I very rarely find something stable enough that I could like leave on a shelf or leave somewhere without having to put it either in the fridge or keep it like this. Or
The only pot that I saw that lasted really well, because it was packed in the kind of in the jungles in Laos. It was with a mutual friend of ours. Name starts with a B.
Right.
And we got vac machines that actually squirted nitrogen into it, and they were like 8 or 10 mil bags. I forget, they were from Japan, made out of nylon. Because everything else, we tried bags from different countries. The stems would just poke right through, right?
Right.
And Bill kept one of those for, I think it was like 4 or 5 years. And I was in the room when he just sliced it open, and it smelled like we were back in the fields. It was that fresh.
Yeah,
the nitrogen kept it from deteriorating somehow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's now the technology. Now that's what is the hot ticket. Like if you have a dispensary and you want to be top dog and have your stuff, because that's the problem. Is a lot of times you'll harvest it in say October and it won't get on the shelf until now. Because they have too much production
till summer,
and they either got to have it in. Left in pounds and broken down later, and that also breaks it down. Whereas they can take it, nitrogen pack it in every single case, and then it'll be as fresh as possible. It's still a little bit like, even though like it's harder when you get smaller amounts, the bigger amount, the better it kind of sits. You know what I mean? Like if you have one or two buds in a thing.
It was kilo bags.
Yeah. Once you have a little bit, it kind of holds itself. You know what I mean? That's the thing is. But also, what we were talking about the other day too, like we were saying, like bring back the bricks, because we grow a lot of weed now, and like a lot of times it gets just ruined by oxidization, just sort of
maybe not super squished
No,
brick
not
like
super
like
squished.
San Diego, El Paso, but nice bale weed, that has a nice like little good press on it, so that it doesn't get as much oxidation. Like now we have all our buds in these bags, and every little bud's getting like totally oxidized, and then that breaks down the THC into these different things. I'm not totally clear on the science, but I'm hearing that breaks down to like what is it?
CBN,
right?
CBN. But and in general, it's just it's when all your weed starts to smell and taste the same, because it's kind of that age, is when things are going down.
It tastes nice.
And what's interesting too is that it's not it's weird how they all start to smell the same, but it's because of the bacterial. It's like that's the
same stuff.
It's the same thing, the same breakdowns going on, and that's what you're smelling, not the plant itself. So it's like you've just lost all the original flavors of the plant. But now what you're left with is whatever
ammonia
the
nitrate.
next. A lot of ammonia nitrate, exactly, and that's why you get the cat pissy ammonia smell, and you're like, oh.
Which is the unfortunate thing about back in the day smuggling. The guys were trying to get big quantities in because our nation, needed it. How many million people we have? I don't know. In New York City, I'm fucking 1,000 pounds a day or something. Things. Are we allowed to swear?
The laws changed everything. When I first started, it was a 5-year max. Then it went up to 15, and it became like, but after that, it became, if you did over 10,000 pounds, life with no parole. More than most murderers get.
And you got to think there's some of those guys out there. The millions of years collectively wasted.
Most guys just quit.
The millions of years collectively wasted over this thing. It's just a tragedy, because these are good people that try to do this work. They're not criminals.
Well, the thing is also when you go to these countries and you see where the stuff is produced and you see the kind of people. That's what a lot of times, for a lot of people, it was like they knew that they were helping a whole village or a whole, a couple families or whatever. But it was always like super gratifying.
When I went up in the villages in north of Mazar-e Sharif in the Hindu Kush, they'd welcome me like I was a valued member. They'd slaughter a sheep and cook these big naans, and it was quite a celebration because I was bringing wealth to the village, to the whole tribe actually.
Yeah, and
I couldn't go there now. They had cut my head off or something. But they were the most honorable, straight up, beautiful people.
Time and place. There's definitely that's what sucks about all the strife that's happening in these places now, is that we somehow, there's a few places left, but for the most part, it seems like all the cannabis, like places like Laos and places like Afghanistan and these kind of places that were all literally the hubs of their different. They may not. India may have been the source. It seems good good spot. I'd bet on that one pretty high. Put that one high on the chart. Pakistan, same. Cyber Pass, same. All that area is like kind of the zone. You know what I mean?
Well, Hindu Kush is the border right there,
and it's right. Yes,
and
I mean
Hindu
it's
Kush
all
is the border. Hindu Kush literally means killer of the Hindus.
Right. Ooh.
You can't go any further than that. For the
Right.
Hindus.
But in general, it was like the birthplace of pretty much a lot of stuff that we're all wondering where it comes from. It all pretty much is that region in some way, shape, or
India
form.
never had enough consistency in quality to be able to bring it back here.
Yeah.
And you're right, Adam. It's sad to see the political strife in these areas, and
Yeah.
how unfortunate it is to be able to travel these places. And we're kind of envious of you, sir, to have had these adventures in these places, and want to hear some more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so you're how old back in the? So you're like in '68. How old were you in '68? Like 22.
Yeah, I was in my early 20s.
Yeah, 20. So, and you're pretty much. You got the fever a little bit. You already did this a couple times. Now you're sort of seeing. Now you're working with a crew, or you're working by yourself. Oh, yeah, I know you're working with one guy at least. but did you have?
It always took a crew of people.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that's usually the
and
positive,
your word was your bond,
right?
And a handshake was, there was.
Hardly any of that these days.
Because everyone's life depended on it. I mean,
Sure.
literally.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I mean that's usually your strength and your weaknesses is your crew. You know what I mean? Like the possibility of if one of them goes down and then they don't hold their word, then you're fucked, obviously. And
That happened to me in Beirut.
really, with
the war going on around us. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Well,
I had to spend 6 months there instead of 3 weeks.
Really? Well, tell us what you can about that if you can.
Well, the guy who had a contact in Beirut, because I didn't want to go back to Afghanistan, and there was, the war with the Russians going on at the time. So we went to Beirut, and the person who introduced me to the Maronite Christian people who were growing in the hills around the Bekaa Valley. The Bekaa Valley was controlled by the PLO.
The Red Lab.
That's like the photos of the chicks with the things. Yeah,
yeah.
They look like they're total missionaries or something. Right?
And it turned out he was a junkie. And I don't trust junkies,
right,
at all, because they'll say anything.
It's definitely a good rule to sort of stand by. I mean, I would not.
So I had to rearrange. We were going to send a container back because I had a container connection on the ports back in the States, and couldn't do it. And he had told some people, which is why he got kicked out of the scenario, what we were going to do. Being a junkie, he thought he was like impressing people, and instead he was like putting us all in danger. So I got a hold of our mutual friend to bring a boat, and it took a few months to get the load together. We only did about, I think it was 25,000 pounds of red lead.
What a lame run!
When it came, well, it turned out to be a very lame run because Colombia had been surrounded by the U.S. Navy at the time, so all these guys with boats from Colombia went to Lebanon. So within a month of when we brought our load in, there were over 200,000 pounds of Lebanese hash floating in the States. Wow. And the price went from $900 to $1,100, depending on your market, down to $300 if you could get rid of it at all. So I spent like over a year on this trip and made absolutely no money. I used to watch the mortar fire and tracers between East and West Beirut at night. That was entertainment. That was about it.
That is cool. Hold on one second.
So the Bekaa Valley, what do you suppose is going on there these days? Are those folks related to the Yazidis that you hear about in northern Syria, the Christian minorities and stuff? And those
they're mostly Palestinian took over the Bekaa Valley.
Palestinian ethnic Palestinian Christians, I suppose.
Some Christians, some
not.
not.
I understand were the ones that were working with the hash in Lebanon in those days.
Yeah, I was working with a couple of Palestinian Christians and Maronite Christians.
Do you know anything about it possibly maybe still happening out there? I mean, I'm sure they still
there'll always be hash grown there. Most of the valley, besides some vegetable patches here and there, were hash plants.
And it's like wild.
like 30 by 100 miles of like.
Is it broadcast seed grown by the villagers, or do you suppose it's a little bit wild at this point, like regenerating itself?
I think they well, I know they pick seeds because they filter everything through
And so
different layers of
they
screens.
probably got guys and kids and whatnot broadcast seeding at a certain time of the year.
But the Christians in the hills had the quality was better than what the Palestinians are growing in the valley.
I see. The mountain wheat always is better, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I feel that way. Yeah.
But that's where I got introduced to Zara, flower of the flower. It was when they shake, the screens.
Okay, over
and
like
they
a bowl.
filter down
Over
and
a bowl.
down.
Is it over
It
a
was
big
what
bowl?
they could pull off the finest of the fine was on the walls, and with their hands they just rub.
Oh,
Just
they
pull-
just they. Could you imagine trying to breathe in those kinds of production scenarios? And I don't know if you ever
stoned all
had.
day.
I don't know if you ever had that stuff in your eyes, a little bit.
Itches.
Holy moly, is it burned?
Yeah.
And you think about the conditions. Some of these folks, well, a lot of us don't think about
Pretty primitive.
the
yeah.
cannabis workers in the third world and what that gets into.
I remember when I first shook hands with an Afghan who was a hand presser, and his hands felt like as hard as like stiff leather.
Right.
I mean, it was just 'cause
I've-
all day long there.
I've seen some weird photos of Afghan. I have a hard time interpreting. I'm not sure exactly what it is. You see a bunch of guys standing on something like some kind of press with maybe some kind of flame under it or something. Do you know anything about that? What is that might be? Have you?
We never used heat. In Peshawar, what they did was they used like a telephone pole, and they got the biggest truck piston tied on to one end, and it was on a fulcrum. So they could raise it up a few feet, and then they dig a hole in rock about 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet, and they put the powder in there, and they just pound it pound it until it softened up, and like each
And if you think
little
about
ball had oils
If you
in
think
it.
about that, now we're using rosin presses, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I bet at the edges of all those things was
Gooey
some
and-
goo. Because what's crazy is one time I was back in the day pressing some hash in Amsterdam, and I remember I really put a little too much heat and a little bit too much torque on it, and then at the edges it like squirted out, right? And it was like this greeny kind of
Oily or
It was not oily though. It was weird. It was like plastic. It literally went back to it was like a polymer, And I was like, oh, this is weird. It smells like weed, but it doesn't really burn because when you tried to burn it, it would kind of like be bubbling off. You know what I mean? Like at the same time, would never actually. And then it kind of caught and got a little volatile, and at the same time, it was like, wonder what that is. Oh well, forget about it. You know what I mean? Didn't think about it. And then back when I was making my laminates, that happened all the time. You know what I mean? Because they'd squirt out the sides.
laminates.
And
Who
then-
remembers the laminates?
And I didn't. And I was telling people if I had just put parchment paper around what I was working on, then I would have had rosin. I would have been the rosin king back in the day. I'd been like, woo, 83.
With your iron already, you already had the iron.
I invented something,
Before his time.
right?
Well, no wonder we were getting so worked on those trichomes, huh? Remember that? That was crazy. Who out there in the audience actually rolled one of those up in a tube and got through one of those things?
Those are the days. Yeah, I take a laminator and then I'd use cellophane. And this is what I was saying. If I just thought about parchment paper, because now parchment paper is the obvious go-to.
Non-stick
It's
for
the
shatter,
It's
yeah.
the go-to thing for making rosin and everything. So I would take and make a card basically out of hash, and by putting it in between cellophane, run it through this laminator, it'd come out nice. And so it went in as powder, came out like a piece of plastic,
And it was pliable.
and it was pliable, and you could look at it and kind of get the idea of whether it was, see-through or not. If it was see-through and had like a tortoiseshell sort of vibe to it, I'd be like, yeah, that's good right
Yeah,
there.
like pressed hash is like taffy. You
Yeah.
just pull it.
And the super dorks like us, we like the super dorks, rolled it up into a
Yes,
joint.
of course. You gotta roll. You got to be completely. you got to be completely decadent. The idea would be then to roll it into a tube. Roll it into a tube and then put weed inside of it, so it's like a reverse, like a backwards.
Back in those days, we didn't smoke weed barely ever. We just hash and tobacco joints.
And, but at the same time, when you have enough around, then you can play around like that. And the thing is,
Yeah.
that was fucking around with me was I wish I was. I mean, it's just like, damn it, parchment paper. Why didn't I think of it? Because I was like always.
How would you have known though?
Yeah, just wasn't thinking like that.
Experimentation.
Just wasn't
Yeah,
thinking.
and the first thing is parchment. Well, for sure, that's just going to melt. We're going to smoke parchment on our wax, and the wax is going to melt into the pot. And it's going to be disgusting. But the thing is I just found out yesterday because I went down to the guys over at Easy. Well, we're not trying to advertise for other companies, are we? But anyways, cool guys making a press. You can look up online. Everybody's using the parchment paper. What I understood about it is it's like 400 degrees or something before any of those compounds wind up in anything else or something.
Yeah, because everybody's all worried in the beginning about the stuff getting into their product.
Right. It's not a thing.
It's not a thing, bro. Well, I mean, it could be on the wrong companies.
Or if you're not
because
doing it.
there's some stuff that I'm sure that's a little cheaper than others, and I've seen the difference between the white paper and the browner paper, and it seems like the white paper breaks up quicker, and at least you can see that happening, you know. So you were telling so you didn't get to the finish. I don't think you finished the part of the story of getting in. Did you get in trouble there? Then is that what you're saying? You ended up
In Lebanon.
In Lebanon.
Back to Lebanon.
Back to Lebanon.
No, I didn't get in trouble.
Okay, because you were saying you stayed for extra
6
months.
months.
6 months became.
Well, I had to rearrange instead
Oh,
of doing
you
the
did-
container. I had to find a
Got
boat.
you. Way better.
I
Way
had
better
a-
than getting in trouble over there for 6 months.
Yeah.
I thought you somehow maybe
A
sat
boat and then
for-
fishermen to offload off the boat, and
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like it took a lot of I had to
Trouble
reorganize the
came
whole
later.
trip.
It was a hurry up and wait situation.
Yeah.
One of those deals. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Is like I think we
So
have
doing the container. I had to find
over
a
the years way better.
I
Way
had
better
to
than
get
getting
in
a
trouble
thick
over there.
skin.
Yeah,
I
when
thought
it
you somehow
comes
maybe
to,
sat
boat and then
for-
fishermen
when it
to
comes
offload
to
off the boat,
waiting
you know,
around
like
for
it took a
people
lot
and
of-
dealing
I
with
had
that
to
kind of stuff.
Trouble
Whereas
came
now,
later.
It was a
New
hurry up and
generation,
wait
everybody's
situation.
like,
One of those
yeah.
deals. Yeah, and that's the other thing too.
Yeah,
Is like
cell
I think
phone. What happened?
now
Did you get in the
have,
mail yet? Whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Way better.
Way
And
better.
it's
Smuggling
getting
used to
trouble.
take a
I
year to
thought
a
you
year
somehow
and a
maybe
half.
sat
A year,
for-
a year and a half.
waiting around for people and
Can you
dealing with that
imagine?
kind of
Trouble
stuff.
came
Now,
year and a half.
it was
How-
a generation
like,
where everybody's
how-
like,
how-
one of those
you-
deals.
you old-
And that's the other
a
thing
lot of
too.
the
Is
old
like,
timers
I think,
like, what happened?
What
Now
kind of
have,
health
effects
effects
whatever the
and
fuck.
psychological
You know what I mean?
issues that might
And-
have?
and-
Smuggling
and-
used to
and-
take
and-
a year
I thought you somehow
out there.
maybe
A
sat
year,
Trying to put the word out
a
there.
year and a half.
Back end.
waiting around
No,
for
no,
people
yeah.
and
No, I mean, you guys
trouble
seriously,
now.
you're out there trying to put the
Hurry up
word
and
out
wait
there.
situation.
Trying to change the nature of timers with a
What
product
happened?
that
What
now
kind of
hopefully
health
affects
effects
other
and
psychological
psychological
you know what I mean?
issues that might have?
My game was always trying to find the
Out
best
there.
smoke.
A year,
Trying to put the word out there.
what a service, brother. What a service. But I mean, you're out there trying to these days cannot imagine having to be on the hook for a year and a half and how that might make our insides feel. I mean,
No, it's a huge.
y'all out there. What a
It's
service,
actually,
brother. What a service. But I mean, you're out there trying to these cannot imagine having to be on the hook for a year and a half and how that might make our
Can't tell nobody nothing. So why are they going to see school? So it's a huge.
Y'all,
and,
what a
it's
service,
actually,
brother.
I think,
What a service. I mean,
things that nobody knows.
out there
Really
cannot imagine having to be on the hook.
Now it's a totally different thing. Now it's figuring out how to keep phones secure, keep your systems, those kind of things.
Yeah, half the people are like, oh yeah, bring me those sour. Hey dude, what's up, dude? You done with that harvest?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, yeah, that sounded really good. It's like, that was a good one. That was exactly how it's totally different. Now it's figuring out. But in general, it is like.
No, you disappear. You'd want to be
Yeah, half the
invisible.
people are like, oh yeah, bring me those sour. Not
You
right.
didn't want
Yeah.
to be heroes who just knew what they were doing. And,
Yeah, exactly. You're like, yeah, that sounded really good. It's like, that was a good one. That was exactly how it's totally different. Now it's figuring out. But in general, it is
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
No, you
yeah,
just-
yeah.
you'd want to be.
Nowadays everyone's doing pop and
You didn't want to be heroes who just knew what they were doing. And
back in the day.
No, it was the exact opposite. It sounded really good.
being famous was like a well,
You're famous when you're in prison. You got caught and it's like, wow, look at that guy. He just moved out. Now
that happened to me once.
Well, even in Instagram,
back in the day.
no, it was the exact opposite.
Being famous was like a well,
You're famous when you're in prison. You got caught and it's like, wow, look at that guy. He just moved out. Now
that happened to me once.
Well, even in Instagram,
back in the day.
no, it was the exact opposite.
Being famous was like a well,
You're famous when you're in prison. You got caught and it's like, wow, look at that guy. He just moved out. Now
that happened to me once.
Well, even in Instagram,
back in the day.
no, it was the exact opposite.
Being famous was like
So
well,
You're famous when you're in prison. You got caught and it's like, wow, look at that guy. He
Instagram.
Being famous is like you're famous when you're in prison. You got caught. It's like, wow, look at that guy. Now being famous is like you're famous when you're in prison. You got caught. It's like, wow, look at that guy.
Good co-host, the glories.
A mutual friend of Adam's and mine did a very large trip, 22 tons of really good Afghani. And the fellow who's going to offload the boat, fishing boat, had leaked. So our mutual friend had to get a boat because the boat that was in the middle of the Atlantic had come all the way from, like off the coast of Pakistan to the middle of was running out of fuel. So we had to get another boat and put it on that boat and then find fishing boats. And so our mutual friend had a friend who had a fishing boat, and I told him to put half of it on because there was so much weight. It was running out of fuel. 22 tons.
Yeah, the bottom, Davy Jones.
Yeah. So he was greedy. He loaded his boat up. He started to come in, and his hull, he got a hole in his hull, and a freighter pulled alongside and called the Coast Guard to help him out. So they pulled the plug and sank the boat. So he was greedy. He loaded his boat up. He started to come in.
See, now back in nowadays,
So
it'd be
some
GPS.
Guys who I had originally was going to do the trip with, who turned out to be, I was introduced to them from some friends, and it turned out to be Slime Brothers, and I kicked them out of the deal because they had lied to us about where they were coming from, where their money was coming, like it was just a bad scene. I was introduced to them. So 5 years, almost 5 years to the day later, I'm pulling into my parking lot. I had an apartment in San Francisco, and half a dozen FBI guys came out from behind cars with guns and said, "You're under arrest." They wouldn't tell me what I was arrested for. And they took me to Oakland. I'm pulling into I don't know the exact building anymore, like where they took me. And these guys were doing good cop, bad cop, and I told them to fuck off. And then they sent in this pretty blonde. And they took me to Oakland. Well, like I didn't exactly do that.
They knew what they were doing.
She put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Mr. K, can you tell us who you're working with? Like it'll go a lot easier. We'll give you a new ID, your identity." And well, like I didn't exactly. If you gave me a blowjob, she put her hand on my. And then these guys rush in.
That worked out well.
Yeah. So they put me, because they were pissed at me, they put me in a holding cell with 6 violent black. Two of them were bank robbers. Another one was a murderer. Yeah. So we ended up rushing.
That worked out well.
So they put me, because they were pissed at me, they put me in their version of Hearts. And we were good buddies by the time I left the United States.
Sometimes perception, it looks like it's going to be super
but I ended up facing 40 years in federal prison. And it cost me, took a year before the court came up, and for 3 weeks it's all they were talking about was a Thai trip and then the hash trip. And all the guys in the Thai trip, 14 of them rolled.
Were you able to make bail during this time?
I was out with I didn't need bail. I was my own recognizance, yes. Because it was in California and
So
the
they had a
judge.
hunch, but they're official.
And all the guys in the they knew what I mean, they had heard, like for 20 years. I mean, they were trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. They never did. No one ever went to jail because of me. Yeah. But I went to jail because of that.
That's why I understood where the principles of brotherhood.
They knew what I mean. But the joke was, for 20 years, I mean, they were trying to figure out what the hell I kept my integrity. 100%. The rats all got 8 years. I got 16 years. But 10 months after I was in federal prison, I won my appeal, and the indictment was dismissed with prejudice because they just lied and stacked. The only evidence they had, I stayed in the same hotel room as one of the rats. And when we looked at the dates on the hotel bills, they were 6 weeks apart. It was a 700-room hotel in Manhattan. They had no evidence. The appellate court threw it out. So the rats all did 8 years. I did 10 months. And
Perhaps Mother Gunga looks out for her children or have good intentions. Not always, not every time. You never know.
not every time.
It's true. There's a lot of good people, unfortunately. They got mixed up.
Yeah. So, and you never know. Did 8 years. I did 10 months.
No, that's for sure. And on the opposite side, just like you were saying, and you make bonds with people at certain points that you never thought you would, and then all of a sudden it becomes
Not every time.
obviously handy at certain times, and also are the ones that are the longest ones because you guys are risking a lot. Got each other's backs, and you can prove it at a certain point.
Well, there's an integrity that you don't see a lot of now, unfortunately.
That integrity thing. It's definitely missing in the industry, that's for sure. But it's just good to see that at least we were all on the right path. That's one thing I like to know. Is like when you're doing something and you think it's good. At a certain point, I'm sure people who sell meth, some of them think it's good, but I'm sure people who sell weed, we know it's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we also had to go through a long time of not. It's everybody believing it. You know what I mean? Everyone like, yeah, right. You know what I mean?
But there's a lot of people in the weed who, at this point who are just in it for the money.
I'm sure people who sell meth, of course, mostly in it for the money.
Yeah.
People who sell weed,
the quality, how to
but we also
what you're using to put it. I mean, that isn't a primary concern to a lot of people. With Adam and other, there are still really good people, but.
No, anybody that's out there listening is definitely, must be listening because they know that Coast is one of trying to convey super
that isn't
quality,
a primary concern.
but there are so many people in the industry now, and the industry is so blown up.
Still really good people.
You're seeing penny stock stuff. People kind of swindling each other out of lots of money just out of concepts without there being real substantial trial. It's unfortunate in the industry now. Back in the day, none of the old timers ever flagged for that. Never flagged. You got to have a bird in the hand for anything to be real, don't you?
You have to know what you're doing.
Exactly. No, and again, those teams that you develop are the heart sort of success and sometimes failure, right? As
There's acts of
Danny
God.
loves to talk about the failures. He wants to hear worse than his own.
No, I like to hear about the winning stuff so I can plan my own strategies. But yeah, there's a lot of failing ways to fail.
Sometimes failure. Sometimes failure.
A lot of times.
There's acts of God.
No, I like to hear about the winning stuff so I can plan my own. There's a lot of policies. So you guys think it's pretty rough that some of us are in prison here. Well, Malaysia.
They'll kill you.
Well, now.
Yeah, talk to that dude. The president. Apparently, Trump and him are going to have some kind of summit and talk about drug policy. So,
Yeah, they're creating a new world axis: Russia, Philippines, and America.
Yeah. Anybody needs to know about. Look into that. I think they've killed how many thousand guys for smoking weed?
I think on like one weekend it was like
apparently death squad.
6,500, I think I heard on the news.
So we definitely have it rough here, and there's
creating a new world axis: Russia,
we started
Philippines.
These guys out there in the Philippines and all them guys, Thailand, old people, they always had this. They always used it. It wasn't a big deal. Afghan, alcohol haram. They're smoking cannabis. We definitely have it rough here traditionally.
Yeah.
Northern India, all through India.
When there was a king in Afghanistan, it was. I mean, you could smoke anywhere.
It's absolutely sacred plant, useful plant, and now you got American drug war policy and American drug war policy enforced on other nations in order to get funding to do whatever kind of shenanigans to get their resources.
Our new attorney general said last year, "Good people don't smoke pot."
And now all of a sudden, you got Colorado, you got California, you got all these rec places where we can smoke and grow, and you can grow a zillion pounds and go to prison for 6 months, pay a $500 fine in California with the new law.
Our new Attorney General
yet,
said last year,
because
good people don't
Of
smoke.
what we put out there during Reagan and all those years, they're killing folks still in those other countries, and we need to like kind of maybe see what we can do to take a look at that, because back in the day, those were our source countries, and if it wasn't for guys like you getting the cannabis out there, there wouldn't be a modern day cannabis industry. That cannabis needed to be continued to elevate human consciousness to the point where we are today, and I'm so grateful.
There were a couple of dozen of us. There weren't like
the work
hundreds
that-
or thousands. Like there's tens of thousands of guys growing pot now. But there were like back in the 70s, early 80s.
A bunch of ballsy dudes like yourself.
No more than a couple of.
Unbelievably so.
There were no more than a couple of dozen guys doing it.
It's an honor.
There were a couple of dozen. It was an honor to do it. Like hundreds. It was so
And that's the
cool.
thing, when you see it as
When you brought your load back to the States and you know,
This is
like,
my smoke,
you passed
you know?
out some of your smoke.
a bunch
and-
of ballsy,
Yeah.
me and my buddies put this together and
no more
enjoy
than a
it,
couple
man.
of-
Have a great night. The concert's going to be fun tonight for all the thousands of you out there and the thousands of you tonight in New York that are going to go out there with your honey and have a good time.
When you brought your load
It's
back
on me.
to the
One man walk, one.
passed out
What
some
is
of
it?
your
One man
smoke.
walking, million man a sparking, right? That's you, man. One man walk, million man spark. All the thousands of you out there and the thousands.
You know, and I think also because people now are so out of touch with how much energy went into getting cannabis back in the day. Like I always give people a comparison of like, especially because you're paying for every single call. But back in the day, you'd probably make between 20 to 40 phone calls to buy like a couple ounces of weed sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you'd be like, really? Call this guy. Call that guy. Call that guy. And keep calling and calling and calling, back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes you drive like 200 miles and get there, and you'd be like, really? That's not what you said on the phone. You know, like you said it was good. Like, oh, wait, that's pretty good. You know, like, oh, you know, like, oh, and you'd end up taking it because you just had no choice. You know what I mean? And now it's like it's all about choice and having back and forth, some cannabis and 20 kinds of concentrates. But really,
What's surprising to me, though, moving to Colorado not too long ago, like, you know, less than 2 years ago, I'm surprised at the poor quality of most of the pot in the state.
You're 100% on it. You're 100% right.
Most everyone I know in California grows, like, I mean, you smoke any of your pot, it like knocks you on your socks. Here, to find that,
We're starting to see it in Arizona a little bit. You know, guys bring
I'm
it down, and
surprised at the
it's just
poor
not what they're
quality
hearing
of
from
most
Oregon
of
and
the pot in the
California.
state.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it's the fact that you guys are all indoor up here. There's not a whole lot of. I mean, am I wrong? Is there a ton of outdoor up in Colorado?
It's more and more.
Here, to
Sorry,
find
folks
that.
are trying to.
But it's more about guys who don't know what they're doing and getting into it for money instead of like, I want to go some really great pot and get people really stoned out of their gourd.
Am I wrong? Is there a ton of outdoor up here in Colorado?
Yeah, and you make some money doing it, but like you're doing it for
Trim
the quality.
machines, no love there with the trimming.
It's more about guys who don't
you
know
know,
what
quick
they're doing and getting into
cures.
it
You're
for
not trying to do a
instead of, like,
60%
I wanna
2
go
months
some
cure.
really
or
great
whatever it
pot
is, you know, you're
and
just
get
like,
people
let's try
or a
it.
3-week
stoned
cure
out.
even,
Yeah, exactly.
instead of 3 days.
Well, you know, the thing,
Yeah,
or it's the other
you
way
make some
around
money
here. Like
doing
people
it, but, like,
sometimes
just doing it
they
for
sit on it
quality.
too long in terms of dust and it's dry because they burn in just super dry conditions, and like that is the whole thing about it here is it's easy to grow good
Or a
weed because of the
3-week
dryness.
cure.
It's
Yeah,
really hard to
exactly.
cure good
Instead
weed
of 3
because of
days.
Like if you go to
Well, you know, the thing, or it's the other way
take
around.
good weed
Like,
here,
people sometimes
that lost its smell and it's kind of doesn't have much of a funk to it. Put it in a jar, take it to somewhere else that's more humid, open up that thing, and within 10 seconds it's like, oh, it's back. And like all the moisture goes back into the plant, kicks out the smell again. And you're like, yeah.
Those Bovita packs help a bit.
I'm not a big fan. To me, those are they
It
make
takes some of the good smell out of it.
it's weird. Do you like those Bovita packs?
Never tried it. I'm
They're
old
crap.
school.
They're crap. I don't like them. I mean, I'm not a big fan. Mostly because it kind of makes things. It makes it feel
Those Bovita
in
packs.
kind of a weird greasy feel to it. Like there's something wrong.
It takes
It's
some
not,
of the good smell.
like I like it when it's crisp and it's got the, like, it should be crisp but still have some something to it, and not just dusty like that. But with that, what happens is it never has that crispness anymore. It's kind of like a little soft and silicone-y feeling or something. I don't know. It's weird.
Well,
Like I like it when it's crisp. I'm glad.
I
I'm
won't
glad.
use them again.
I'm glad. Well, I just don't think they're really. I think the point being here is if you have your weed dried at the right level and you don't take out too much at any given moment, you just keep, just don't, because the whole problem is opening and closing, opening and closing. So if you have like a jar and you just keep going in and out, like in some places, glad.
I want to use them again.
I'm glad. Here, well, I just don't think they're.
No, just have that ounce jar that you're going to smoke for the day.
Yeah, ounce a day.
Back in the
exactly.
day, we used a little slice of apple. Just put in, I
The whole
mean,
problem is there was all those tricks: apples, oranges, and
Lettuce.
we didn't know what we were
bread,
doing with pot. I
lettuce.
mean, we had no idea what we were doing with pot in those days.
Well, I just don't.
There wasn't the technology there is now, or the knowledge, the amazing amount of knowledge.
Back in the day, what was it? Walgreens humidifiers, you know? Spread it all
I
out.
mean, actually, bread worked really well. That was always a good one. It didn't
We
really
didn't know what we were
bread,
doing with pot. I
lettuce,
mean, we had no idea what we were doing
moisture
with pot in those
that
days.
wasn't too aggressive. You know what I mean?
There
Like when you
wasn't
did like
the
a
technology
potato
there is now
or
with
whatever
the
else,
knowledge.
all around that would be stuck to it. And
was
it
it,
was like, you
Walgreens,
know right, whatever was really close to it, wet almost, you know. Like with the bread, it was kind of like the classic where it's like, yeah, it kind of just gets in there without too much. But really, the best is just if you have access to leaves of cannabis leaves, that's the best. You know, you just make a layer of leaves, pour your weed on top, make another layer on top.
It's funny you say that.
Seal it up for a night, 24 hours, even less, and that stuff comes out perfect. And you've just added weed moisture back into it. You know?
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's really the best.
So I'm here in Colorado. I just went out to a big farm of.
Oh yeah, tell us about your big farm.
And all female. The trend is to now that you can grow hemp here. The only kind of hemp people seem to be growing here is this crazy ass all female CBD rich thing with the hopes that $0.7 a gram.
Oh yeah, tell us about your big farm.
And all whatever it is. Anyways, you got these farmers here that are getting hoodwinked into growing fields, and it's all CBD stuff, and the poor guys, they got millions of dollars equipment, some of these big grain farmers and stuff, and now all of a sudden they've been talked into this with the hopes that somebody's going to come and buy it all from them. In the meantime, they have no idea about, it's completely different than what they're used to. Next thing you know, you got these old guys in CBD stuff, suspenders, old guys, trying to pick weeds between the spacing of these female, they don't know what the heck to do. And then they finally harvest them. The guys aren't around afterwards, and they're like, "Hey, let's do this." It's completely different. And they're sitting there holding the bag, which means that they've got these 100-foot long barns, 20-foot high, 40 feet wide, that look like a defunct Christmas tree farm, depository, and it's like a complete hemp-lanch tragedy in these spots.
Aren't there places people could sell the hemp to make like fiber and cement and clothing?
Well, it's not properly spaced and grown for fiber.
Is that the
they're trying to
or
grow.
is that still mostly China and Europe?
Well, the hempcrete, of course, that's, people are doing it in small scale here. That's happening. I mean, to me, that's definitely the future because fiber is not really happening yet in America.
It's no infrastructure.
It's not properly spaced and grown anything
fiber.
with it.
They're trying to grow
mills left in America that are all not. Well, the hempcrete, of course, that's set ready for hemp. Doing it in temperature scale here. Destroy their.
So any kids out there that are thinking about talking to these old timey farmers into growing a CBD farm, please, maybe try to contact some of those folks that have big barns full and help them out of these quagmires you got these folks into. They got millions of dollars worth of tractor equipment that are sitting out in the field now because they're trying to take care of y'all's CBD stuff. So get out there and start processing it and give some money to these poor guys.
Well, you don't want farmers getting bummed out on the hemp and cannabis right out of the gate.
It's unfair.
And I already saw that coming because it was like, hey, if you don't have a place to sell this stuff, you really might want to slow down on your acreage right now because that's
something a lot of people forget about marketing.
So yeah, I've been asked to come and try to help.
Well, you don't want farmers
I'm not sure how to market on that. We're looking towards doing grain. We know how to market
gate.
It's unfair.
And I already saw that coming because it was like, hey, if you don't have a place to sell this
in
stuff
the United States at all. So that is
something a lot of people forget about marketing.
So yeah, I've been asked to come and try to
we don't want farmers getting
start down on that.
I don't think it's being overlooked as much as there's a lot of hoops and protocols to go through because once you get into it's just like, oh, okay, well, you're just another grain, so now you got to go through these normal things, which part of them are like 2 to 3 years of like testing with it to come up with your own, because they need to have a being overlooked as much as it, and that's the problem. Is like,
but if you think about it, it's like wheat, corn, barley, all these things, rye and stuff. Imagine if all this time we were growing hemp and used to eat it, and it was in all the breads and foods and everything we ate, and all of a sudden somebody's like, hey, there's a thing called wheat. Anybody want to try it? If you think about it, it's kind kind of like that's where we're at with hemp because it is going to be a very useful
stuff,
food
you
for
know.
us.
You know, imagine if all this time we were growing.
Yeah, I think from the food, I think seed, lots of seed. Just grow as much seed as possible for both growing and for food because that's
Anybody want to
the
try it?
the easiest thing to produce. Like you've just produced a thing after you take that off the plant. Whereas if you
And these farmers have the stuff already; they can do it.
like when you have to take this when it's CBD is your main focus. CBD should be lots of seed, definitely extracted if it's there,
Oh, it's
and all that stuff should be used. But if you kind of focus more on the seed and didn't try to grow a big Sensi, female only huge thing and get over because the problem with oil is like when you have it's a whole other step, another whole step that needs to be done. And it costs, it's expensive, and timing is the crucial thing.
$1 extraction process.
Well, it's just timing is crucial, and if your stuff sits for a year, it's not going to be as good as if it was done within a 3-month processing time, just because it breaks down again and things change, and you get more. Again, you're back to having stuff that's like dark and not as interesting looking, and the market. Then everybody's going to try to distill it anyway. That's like
Right.
the main goal.
We just did a rosin experiment on some of that stuff. We're just trying to figure out.
You've seen the CBD distillate too, which is just like crystalline stuff.
And what I've
Like
heard,
the amber?
yeah,
No, it's
there's a
white.
powder. It's a white
crystal.
powder.
It's crystal. It's
No,
like
I haven't seen
It's
it.
crazy. Like it looks like drugs.
And everybody's
And maybe it is, but apparently not.
No, it's not drugs,
Because
but
it doesn't. It's not even. Well, I mean,
Well, the thing about it is,
it's not effective, right?
It's effective in its own, like it's very good.
What I've
Like
heard,
the amber?
No,
there's a powder. It's a white powder.
It's crystal. It's
No,
it's
I
got
haven't seen
very
It's crazy.
good
Like it looks like drugs.
analgesic qualities, but it's not.
And maybe it is, but apparently. Have you heard that the powdered stuff though is not even active? Well, I mean,
The thing about it is
the
Delta
CBD
8 or something, the Delta 8.
Well, no,
or
the
something.
CBD is not even an active CBD.
I mean, sorry, not Delta.
The CBD isn't an active form that's useful to humans. Is what I've just heard just recently. Have you heard? I'm not clear on the science, so let's just say anecdotally.
We'll say that for a science episode, real
Well,
science.
yeah, let's ask about it though next time because I'm hearing that the powdered CBD hasn't been super effective. So just look into it.
Yeah, and I mean, well, there's a lot of CBD derived from like 3% or 2% crops that almost definitely can't, in my opinion, be as effective as plants that are really like 7 or 8 or 9%, just because that's those. I mean, of course, just like the argument that THC is THC is THC and CBD is CBD is, once you get, especially when you break it down into a distillate, then it's like, okay, that's you're at the rawest form possible, and really it should be the same, but I feel like when your source material is a little higher, a little bit more, coming out like if it's coming at 7% compared to product coming off at 3%, you got to do twice as much work to get to the finish line, which means more solvents, more time, more breakdown, more degradation along the way. Just like when you do anything small, a little higher.
I guess my point here goes back to that thing about greed that we were talking about earlier, and people out there trying to make a buck, and people's ideals about this whole.
Well, there's nothing wrong with making a buck. We
no,
used to make quite a bit of
a
money
lot.
when we brought.
And I'm out to make millions. I want a Swiss
But
chateau.
the gist, the whole meaning underneath it was, I want to get people really as stoned as possible, plus it'll be a more peaceful world if people are at ease.
And in this
That
case-
was the whole.
Well, you were on the
point.
same tip
Quite a
as the
bit of money
Brotherhood when they were
we
they're
brought.
And I'm
taking
out to
all their
make
money and
millions. I want
funneling
a
it back.
But the
Take their acid
gist,
sale, take their weed sales and put it
meaning
right straight into
underneath it
acid. That
was,
was their whole
I want to
formula,
get
which was
people
funny because they
really
gave away
stoned
most
as
of the acid.
possible.
So I was like, okay, so you guys are going through all that, like going, smuggling, getting
That
it,
was
getting money.
that was the whole.
No one was
we were
buying
on the same
cars.
tip
Nobody
as
was
the
buying really.
Brotherhood.
And it is interesting because when I grew up
the
off and on, back and forth between California and the East Coast, I always noticed in California that everybody was like a lot more content with sitting at a certain level and not pushing those crazy boundaries. Like I knew these people were doing things and they had money, but nobody was flashy. Everybody was just a little bit more calm. And then on the East Coast, it was the opposite. It was like people weren't doing anything, but if they did anything, they just were like, "Yeah, I bought a new truck or something." And be like, "Well, what are you doing?" Like like didn't really have the same because they didn't grow up with it. It kind of became something later on, Whereas these other all the guys on the West Coast, they kind of grew up with it, and then on the East Coast, I think the smart towns that were up in the mountains that were cranking up the weed were the ones that didn't go out and buy all the new 4x4s. So there was towns that did it, and they all got busted because it was like, why is every single person in this town have a brand new car? It doesn't make sense. It was like you're in some little backwoods place and brand new lifted trucks and a whole 9 yards. And it was like, yeah, because they had some local protect at the time, so they felt like they were protected. But once the feds roll in and sort of say, hey, got busted, because it was like, why is that $2 million in car sales in this one town of 1,000 people? What the fuck's going on? It's a brand new. But I think if
they followed the money. Yeah. They had to be really smart.
Yeah, and the thing
pay
is,
taxes and all that, and a lot of guys didn't.
Right. Did you? So yeah, I mean, probably taxes is the worst part of how most of the biggest people go down in the long run, because. But I think if they don't believe they're part of that system, Yeah, and if you do have to kind of feed the animal a little bit, something, otherwise they'll get really mad and be like, all right, we'll just come take everything.
Yeah, I had a good account. They tried to get me for IRS stuff, and I got busted, and they couldn't because I pay taxes. So that was the only good thing about that.
Right? Well, it is like the most unconstitutional thing out there.
Yeah, I had a good account. They tried to get me for IRS stuff, and I got busted, and they couldn't.
Not supposed to be the plan at all.
It seemed to be a good idea after the suffering stops and the plants freed up and the violence stops, and we are really truly working towards a better society. Until then, we'll just keep working towards a better society, right? And
I mean, it's come so far, but one thing that really irks me is this term that people are using. Oh, we have legal pot. It's not legal. They don't count how many grapes are in a vineyard, but they sure want to count how many plants you're growing and tax you for it.
And I'm all for organic farming.
I mean, it's come so far,
I'm
but
an organic farmer. I believe
one thing that really irks me is this term.
But isn't it kind of ironic and funny now?
Oh, we have legal
pot. Some of these states, right, where you can only grow organic.
Yeah,
right.
They don't count how many grapes are in a vineyard, but they sure want to count how many plants you're growing and tax you for it.
And
please label the
And why are you going
GMO
to impose
stuff.
that on me as a cannabis farmer? By the way, when I'm driving up and down I-5 to get back and forth to my farms, and you got some flipping 40,000 gallon thing full of blue shit that's being sprayed all over everything, yet you're gonna piss and moan about the Mexicans in the creek. Fucking, come on. I mean, yeah, it's not cool. And why are you gonna impose that on me as a cannabis farmer? Pissing away their whatever the 15, 20, or the 30, or whatever they got out there.
But as more states have become medical, there's less. They have less.
At the end of the day,
I understand the cartels are hurting on the marijuana part.
A lot of these guys are just Mexicans, to be honest. And that's the deal. And they know other people will sell it to you, whatever they got out there. Go for it.
But as more states have become medical,
you got national forests. You got cows. Fuck the place over. At the end of the day,
I understand the cartels are hurting on the marijuana part.
I'm not saying it's great that they're in the watershed, polluting it. Maybe we need to look at that. Hey, maybe the federal government should license cannabis if they're going to license cows eat these places, and they're going to license timber. Go in there, cut these big ass trees down. How about we go to those places after trees are cut down and get a little cannabis for a little, you know what I'm saying? In a way. So let's not piss and moan too much. Hey, maybe the federal government should license about that. You know what I mean? And then these laws are like, oh, you guys have to grow organic. Well, let's see y'all grow organic with your rice.
One of my big questions at this time in history is why the hell didn't Obama unschedule pot?
So let's not piss and moan too I heard he likes the cheese from Nevada City, from the hills in San Juan and stuff. I heard up there is Obama's favorite organic smoke. That's an underground thing.
One of my big questions at this time in history
from inside
is
Milo's going to be super happy.
Obama unscheduled
yeah, it became pretty apparent he was not going to do anything about 2 weeks ago. Like at first it was like, yeah, it's happening any day. I mean, how many times I saw that on Thursday he's going to reschedule. I was like, that didn't happen.
He scheduled one CBD.
I know, it was the exact opposite. It was the exact opposite.
It's only good for health stuff. It doesn't even get you high. It's not addictive. It's Schedule 1? What?
Well, it's unbelievable. I heard some controversy about if they do wind up taking it to schedule another schedule, it could be very devastating because
I don't want it to go to schedule anything right
Yeah,
now
because
because
it's,
it's like
it's nuts because then
for
they have
health
to do all
stuff. It
kinds of
doesn't get you
FDA
high. It's
stuff
not
to do
addictive,
anything. And FDA stuff
Schedule
takes years and
1.
years. And
What?
the problem is we don't want it to get to the situation where they say, okay, yeah, we actually do accept it as medical. You can't grow it anymore, you know what I mean? Because that's a real
It's our
medical thing. Just because, you know, we're not
And then the
wanting to
big
go to
pharmas.
schedule
Right.
now.
Yeah.
So we're kind of happy if it doesn't change in that direction. It's very similar to the same reasoning behind 64, why a lot of people didn't want it to happen, because what if it waited 2 more years until the next sort of general
And then the
election?
big pharmas.
It could have made it way better. So kind of way better thing to make everybody happy, but instead they just didn't want to lose momentum.
There was 2 factions down in Arizona, and I think that's why we lost down in Arizona, because you had the MMP fellows, and then you had the other guys, which were like,
general election.
tomatoes. Super freed up anyway, dispensary, yada yada. And the money was with the MMP clearly, and they got their stuff on, and the other guys didn't, because there wasn't paid initiative guys. But at the end, everybody was like, well, hey, it looks like these MMP guys wrote it for everybody that wants to be having zillions already and in the business, and for the guys that have the dispensaries already. And by the way, the Arizona dispensary nut was about the toughest flipping nut you could ever crack. And 31 guys, 757 guys applying for the last license at like minimum application cost of about 10 to 25. For an application, it's like, yeah, right, this is really easy to get into. So the other group was like, let's do it kind of a free-for-all. But they didn't get any support and they didn't have any money. So the MMP guys were like, oh, only the metal guys can do it, but it can be, minimum application. And a lot of the people, that are smokers were like, you know what? This whole thing has been unfair. We can't grow weed here because we got to be 25 miles from a dispensary from the first MMP disaster that you guys imposed on us. Thanks, MMP. We're happy you did it, honest to God, because any change in the is sort of cool, you know what I mean? But it's pretty greedy at the same time too. It gets back to that whole greed. We're gonna produce a bunch of CBD and tell these farmers
California, you mentioned 64. My understanding is there's a provision in there for for small growers at least. Where guys can grow a couple of hundred plants. They don't have to buy, like in Colorado.
It's all municipal determined.
To get 1,600 or 1,800 plants.
All determined by the municipalities.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because a few years ago, 100 plants was like a big deal for a lot of us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just the fact that people could grow 99 plants, and then now the numbers are, some places are doing 8,000 plants, 10,000 plants. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's where I was saying earlier. It's like that is there's a lot of back work on keeping those things going and keeping everything rolling, and also the fact that now which is good, we're being highly regulated on what pesticides we can use, which is good. It makes people grow better, but it also puts people through a lot of difficult situations where they're, back in the day they would have just gone and got some
Roundup.
Well, wouldn't go for Roundup, but even some of the ones like Avid. Well, Avid is also probably one of the worst ones. But there's some stuff out there that got in there that wasn't even really that bad. Like that Monterey company, they make that one for caterpillars, which is which is just Bacillus thuringiensis, exactly. And that's like the most common thing ever. And they're like, nope, can't have that. And you're like, really? That's like
is that true in California?
Yeah. Here, Colorado. I don't know
in Colorado, no BT.
Nope. And so you're like,
well, you probably don't have the problems.
And that's like a silver bullet for those kind of things, and it's also been used forever. You know what I mean? And so they crack down, but they did. But I mean, Oregon's even worse. Oregon has the strictest. I mean, they're just like, wow,
strictest but coolest in a way too.
Is it?
Well, as far as letting
they have great rules.
As
for
far as
growers.
letting a normal guy in that doesn't have a ton of money, you can go and you can grow weed there.
What's really cool there is, and friends of ours were part of the reason that they even did this is, as a breeder, you can grow as many males and as many vegging plants and as many seeded females as you want.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Only flowering plants.
Yeah, so if you had, as long as you're seeded, you're good.
In the medical thing. In the medical.
No, even
rec you can grow unlimited on the hay.
I'm just saying, even as a home grower, just go home and grow 1,000 plants. Make sure they're seeded, though.
Yeah, have a clone business in your closet.
And you can have as many vegging plants as possible. So those rules are definitely cool. But then when it comes to the other side, when it comes to the actual pesticide side and how you're going to grow them, is difficult. Every state has its own quirks. I mean, there's not a good system anywhere where I'm like, that's the one. You know what I mean? Colorado's got the most maybe experience when it comes to rec, but as you've seen, a lot of the weed is crap. You know what I mean? And it's not because it's it's because people are just pushing it out as fast as they can and not understanding the nuances that we all love.
Guys who are growing in dispensaries, I mean, some of them
There's some good ones.
would buy pot from me because it was better than what they were growing for the dispensaries, which was kind of surprising to me.
Well, that is always the case, though. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. Like I was saying earlier about Amsterdam, and people come there. Oh, there's no good weed. There's no good weed. And that was always my
You had it.
invitation to bring them downstairs and smoke them out, and then be like, oh yeah, there's
There
really
is good weed
there's
here.
good weed here. I
Wait,
got
Adam
this.
has it.
And then it was like, oh, I guess there is good
Why
weed. He's
weed?
like, yeah, but that's pretty much like I think everywhere where you
No,
just.
Soma G, you know.
So yeah,
you
and that's the
know,
thing. Everybody go to see Soma. They come
Soma
see
G,
me.
you have to go to Soma G's house and what Dumac if you're in the mix.
closer to the mic.
But you have to be really in the mix for that. The boys down at the gray area had some weed to smoke. Katsu certainly.
Yeah, you're doing all the
You know,
faves. You got all the
and,
faves right now. You're kicking off.
But the best, my personal favorite in town, Club Media in the Kush.
Oh, the cushy kush.
Kush from the Club Media, Eddie. Eddie's weed, is really nice actually.
Well, and Eddie is partnered up with Watson and Clark. So back in the
all the
day,
goofballs,
so all
man.
those guys were the kind of. So Watson was like the guy who brought skunk to Amsterdam, and Clark is his partner.
I remember the first time I went to Amsterdam, I hooked up with our friend, and he took me to a coffee shop, and we walked in, and there was, the pages with the little thing and how many guilders a gram and all that. We bought a little hash. We went out. There were tables outside, and we had a cappuccino, rolling a joint, and I got so paranoid. I mean, I've been underground for years, and here we are.
You're like a really smoke right?
Yeah, I'm looking all around, like who's gonna grab me?
I remember taking pictures in front of police cars with joints, freaking out, trying to smoke in the airport. We can smoke anywhere. Hey, sorry,
It was so cool.
You shouldn't quite smoke here. Put the doubts, please. Go to a coffee shop. So, anyways,
I love when Teddy's here.
No, speaking of Amsterdam, just in this moment, I know not to get off topic and stuff, but shout outs and prayers to the Greenhouse family. We love you so much, Franco, and thank you so much for all the hard work you did. Not to be too religious, but for some of us, cannabis is a religious plant. For me, it certainly is. I got a lot of what I get out of the spirituality from cannabis from some Hindu and yogic philosophy, and for my brother Franco, who traveled the world to get cannabis for people who unfortunately just passed on a super important mission to Congo to help some folks in the villages where the greenhouse was doing some of their strain hunting. Got sick and died. And
They were doing a malaria project with CBD, a CBD malaria project is what they were trying to work on. And then he got cerebral malaria.
It's a really fast onset. It's like quick. It's like 10 hours, 12 hours. And he was way the hell in there. So God, thank you for Franco and Om Santi Salam Satnam Sabda Om Spirit Swami Kami and Salam Sajiru Sakuna Papa Om. It's a prayer for Franco. Peace to your soul, brother. And on to the next part of the show.
Om Namo Shivaya.
Boom.
So let's continue down the road of your wackiness as a youth. So you how many trips?
Speaking of adventures in third world countries.
Yeah, did you go? So did you do Asia at all? Also,
well, I lived in Asia 15 years.
You're like me. Every time people tell me, ask me something, I lived there for 20 years. Oh, I lived there for 10. How the hell old are you? No. So
I'm a walking antique.
Right. So 15 years in which countries?
Thailand.
North or south? More or all over? Both. Yeah.
But I had a house in Chiang Mai for years.
Yeah, Chiang Mai's nice.
Yeah,
I like North a lot more.
I spent a lot of
Golden
time
Triangle,
in the islands in the Gulf. India.
Which parts in India did you live?
I lived in outside of Bombay and Pune in the early 70s.
Maharashtra state.
Yeah, and then in Lucknow in the 90s. And both times I was with a teacher. So.
Very long traditions of religious cannabis use in India, and as we were speaking before, potentially the source of psychoactive of cannabis varieties.
It was funny. My teacher in the 70s, so I went to in Pune, I quit smuggling. I was going to like be spiritual and live there, and I had a girlfriend who became my wife, and that was it. And then he called me in for a private meeting one day and said he wanted me to smuggle again because he needed money. And it would be a great teaching for me, a great Sufi teaching if I went back into the world.
Trouble, didn't have no trouble.
So of course I did it.
Absolutely.
Of course. Gave him hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process, and then later got screwed by him. So much.
Well, as long as you had faith, I think is what's the important part. Whether these guys are real or not, sometimes it's your own faith. That's really important to get you through certain situations, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, live and learn, as they say.
That was pretty cool. What a life, what an exciting life.
So were you married at any time along the way, or did you have any,
twice? Yeah.
With any of the locals there, or was it bringing
no?
No,
I had a blonde-haired California wife
some
who I met
girls
at the
crazy
same
enough
time
to chase her
I
around.
knew your mom.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I met her at the Reek Institute in L.A. actually.
Trippy, nice. So, how do they feel about your escapades along the way? Is that why you had two of them, or is there a reason? The first, were they aware of everything you were doing, or were you just kind of like?
Oh, the total. Yeah, she would travel with me.
Team member.
We had a baby together in India.
Right.
Wow, born in India.
Born in India, 1977.
Was it a home birth or a hospital birth or?
It started to be a home birth, and then it was taken
donkey
a while, so we
birth.
went
It was a
to a
donkey
little
birth.
clinic.
Burrow.
35-hour labor. It was really intense.
Oh, 35-hour labor. That can be pretty rough.
Yeah,
Did she use cannabis at all during that time?
Yeah, we actually did smoke.
So
yeah.
it must have given her at least
she
some
was
relief.
getting some tranquilizer into
There
her
is definitely a
IV,
long
but,
tradition of
yeah.
cannabis use in childbirth, and certainly for menstrual cramps and morning sicknesses, using leaves and teas, which wouldn't be necessarily super psychoactive, but have some of the other medicinal benefits.
Well, in Ayurveda shops in India, they have indica tinctures and they have sativa tinctures, and I mean, it's been that way for thousands of years.
And I understand too. And there's something. Can you tell us? Have you ever visited a bong shop? Do you know anything about those?
Bang.
A bang or bong?
Bong.
Bong.
It's actually bong.
I just say it. I'm saying it's bang.
Bang.
Bang bong.
As you know it, it's bang, but it's really bong. Bong.
Well,
bong. Actually, Bangladesh. Anyways, go ahead. Bong.
Yeah, we used to make smoothies out of it. Yeah.
And tell us anything you know about it. What do you know about it?
It's not like as good as hash, but it's like
It's
ground
cannabis.
up leaves and yeah. It's cannabis.
And they make a drink from it.
Well, it's kind of a gooey black. It's like soft black, and then you can put it in a drink. It's not really good to smoke.
And where did you find
They actually have holidays in India, like Holi.
Holi, yes, that's what I understand.
Where they like a lot of the middle class Indians who
Middle
never
class
smoke.
children, even from what I understand.
They get the whole family stoned on it. They make
And really
that's cool.
stoned, because
That's
if
cool.
any of y'all out there have ever eaten it before,
get pretty
maybe
loaded.
some of the listeners have tried edibles. It's a different buzz.
Yeah, bong sweets. And one of the first time I went to India, actually, I went with the yogi who really, what a Yogi Bhajan.
Really, Yogi Bhajan from the Sufi from the Sikh tradition.
Right.
From the Sikh
Right.
tradition. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there were a bunch of us. We were like a lot. 2/3 of us were just going to India, like to see India, and to learn yoga, deeper yoga, Kundalini yoga. And in 3 weeks, there was no yoga. We were being taken by bus to rich Indians, and singing bhajans for them. He was showing off his disciples. We weren't disciples.
A different kind of yoga.
We weren't
certainly.
disciples, And then he started telling us,
You were
like
white
we had to wear turbans.
White elephants.
And I said, like, I'm a New York Jew. I don't wear a turban, dude. So I went into Delhi, and I had a contact there, and I had an apartment for a little bit, and I bumped into Wavy Gravy and the Hog Farm, which had driven over from Amsterdam. And Dick Alford came down from Neem Crowley's ashram. He was Ramdas all of a sudden. We all took acid together, and one of the guys in the Hog Farm turned me on to these things they had in bakeries that were like bong sweets. They were like a light yellow. And they were really sweet, and it was like basically pollen. And
maybe some kind
trippy.
of laddu or burfi or something with cannabis.
So I went back to Yogi Bhajan's camp, and I brought a couple hundred of these bong sweets. And I told all the people hanging around that it was prasad from the guru.
Boom.
And got them all zoned. And there were like about 20 some guys who were walking around with the turbans.
Talking about flying yogis.
And the rest of us all had a big meeting and said, this sucks. So 2/3 of the people went to Goa, the rest of them went to Nepal, and
Off
he
to
had
the
about
beach.
20 out of 85 left who like were followers.
Sometimes
I was kind of
sometimes cannabis.
I was a naughty guy.
Cannabis can reveal the truth sometimes.
Yeah, I got everybody totally blown out, and they were so happy to get blown out because it was a joke. We were living in tents. We're supposed to be on a yoga camp and see parts of India, and after 3.5 weeks, there was not one yoga lesson.
Seems like you were doing the most amount of yoga of anybody, handing out prasad,
Sanding
the
washing
real
the
prasad,
car, painting the fence.
changing some real minds. Well, that sounds like a really interesting time in India.
It was an interesting time. I went to Goa with my girlfriend.
I was just going to mention Goa. I was like, well, okay, now we got to go to Goa, of course.
Yeah, it was a Portuguese enclave, and it was more European, but in India.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool. We rented a 4-bedroom house on the beach. It was called the Swami's house because it was painted red. And I think it was $20 a month.
Was there any local cannabis, go-in cannabis, or was it all like import, brought in from other states?
It wasn't until the mid-'70s in India that I actually smoked good pot in India. I always smoked hash.
Yeah, the hash. I heard, my understanding of it is, and what I've seen when I've been to India, is there's not so much weed being smoked in the north. You have mostly hash.
Well, it's so good.
And if you're smoking the weed, it's because you're too poor for the hash, and it's pretty bad. But
Well,
the hash
unless
is
you
good.
get, like you were mentioning Kerala before, I sent a friend of mine who was an Indian, actually, in Pune when we were living there, had a Hawaiian girlfriend. He'd been to Hawaii and smoked good Hawaiian pot.
Sure.
And we were smoking a Chillama hash, and I said, man, I'd like to smoke a joint of pot. And he said, I can get you a good pot, as good as Hawaiian. I said, no fucking way, man. I've been here for years. I haven't seen it. And he said, I can do it.
Yeah, Kerala.
So I gave him $1,000. And I gave him
a
two
grand
big
of rupees
suitcases,
or a grand dollars.
$1,000
Woo! In India.
to go from Pune down to Kerala
Yeah.
and get some
just
pot. He came back 3 weeks later with 2 suitcases full of really beautiful Kerala bud, and
dookie.
I had to eat my words because it was really good.
Yeah.
Like you smoked about a third of a joint, and blackish
So,
red
and
goo
haze
was coming
like
out
a
in
really
your mouth.
hazy taste. Did you notice
Yeah.
like a very
Lemony,
hazy?
yeah.
And of course, long narrow leaf buds.
But it was so resonant, like
Yeah.
I just said,
Absolutely.
blackish red goo would come out.
And dark, certainly dark colored because of the cure process over there. Maybe a little bit of green, like olivey. But man, like you said, when you smoke it, the joint certainly totally color and that haze flavor that's unexpected from stuff that looks that way.
There were 6 of us.
You look at the stuff in especially in modern times, going there with an experience in domestic or American grown cannabis. You go there and you see this third world produced stuff, and you're like, wow, what the hell is this? You smoke it, and it's better, most wonderful flavor than any of these flavors we have with the spicy, beautiful haze.
And it was totally
hazy
psychedelic.
stuff.
I close
And
my
trip
eyes and
balls.
see cartoons.
And trip balls, but yeah,
beautiful.
Not to mention you're an Indian, it's already trippy. But besides that, you know what I mean. But as you're accustomed to it from being there for years,
Yeah.
you
I
certainly
remember
notice.
there were 6 of us, and we literally, I rolled a joint, passed it around. Between the 6 of us, and we were heavy smokers in those days, we got through half a joint, all 6 of us. That's how strong it was.
It's too much.
And we were smoking the best Afghani hash that I had brought there, and the best
So it's just
hash from northern
like
India.
what Adam and I were talking about earlier in the conversation about having just a different sort of profile, even though the THC might be low, the entendre effect of whatever jungle weirdness Kerala has going on has that little freak zone where we're just like, whoa, kind of trip, and like, oh my god, fun. So when you're in India, did you ever make it up to Kashmir at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dal Lake and Srinagar and those kind of places.
And from Manali,
I
the
can't
Parvati
imagine.
Valley behind
I heard the
it
old
had
stories
really good
of
hash.
Yogananda going to Dal Lake to meditate, and then of course the hippies all going there to Dal Lake to hang on the houseboats. Did you get a chance?
It was beautiful.
Did you get a chance to hang on the houseboats?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Beautiful, unbelievable, beautiful wooden carvings all through the houseboats. I mean, they were all just hand done by such labors of love. And you were on a beautiful, quiet, serene lake, and everywhere around you there were these mountains shooting up. It was just, yeah.
That's stunning, just stunning.
Totally stunning
And a
nature.
different culture from the rest of India. Not am I right? It's like you're in a different country. Pretty much, Kashmir, from what I understand, the folks that are living there consider it to be Pakistan, or they want to be independent.
Well, half of it is
or they
Pakistan.
or they want to be independent, and there's a line of control there, from what I understand.
Well, till the Brits showed up, India was like, I don't know how many different nations. There were like about 20 or 30
even all
different
the way out
nations.
to Afghanistan, I think, was maybe independent. But certainly Bangladesh, and then maybe.
There was no India. It was like
Ceylon
different Rajas running different.
Bhutan and those kind of hill stations and whatnot.
Exactly.
But I find Kashmir to be fascinating. Led Zeppelin song "Kashmir," of course. I had that rocking on my iTunes when I was there. I got the chance.
That's the first thing my dad asked me when I lived in Amsterdam for about a year, and I was kind of trying to get him to come over there, and he's like, they have Kashmir hash. And I was like, yeah, they got it. I don't know how authentic it is or not. It was always like the stuff they had in Amsterdam was always real thin.
Yeah, thin, and that's how
dark,
it was. That's
dark and thin.
Dude,
right?
That's what I bought when I was there. Dude.
Yeah,
just like that.
Yeah,
same shit.
Dark and thin and kind of plasticine vibe.
But
too.
what a freak out, man! Because I hadn't been smoking that much. Because getting to Kashmir is heavy duty, nowadays. Because of I don't know if y'all hear in the news and the Indian government at the protests with the kids in the spring, and the policy of shooting pellets at eyesight, blinding like 700 Kashmiri youths this year that are having peaceful demonstrations. Pretty awful stuff,
Yeah.
And I was there for the start of that. And so it was kind of paranoid vibes, and certainly for me, like
were you on a houseboat? Were you staying on a houseboat?
I didn't. You know what? I was right across from them. I cheesed it out. I wanted to watch CNN. What a jerk! But anyways, I looked down on them. Anyways, you know what I mean? It was cool.
Look down on them.
The houseboats, because I'm.
I know, but now you even sound really bad. I
looked
looked down on them.
I did.
I flicked my ashes on them.
What a jerk!
What
But anyway, no, I actually wound up going snowboarding, which is actually right on the line of control. There's more Indian guys with machine guns than there were snowboarders.
Wow.
Pretty flipping far
That's
out.
weird. Yeah, that's
But
not a great
hash,
snowboarding vibe, is it?
If you want to smoke hash and snowboard in a very dangerous place and like get a real buzz, Anyway,
well, yeah. Anytime
Ghoul Mars is what it's called.
Anytime
But
there's
I like to hear
automatic
the old
weapons around, you get a
stories.
little higher off your whatever you're smoking. Yeah,
The old stories about the peaceful times when he was able to go there and really feel at peace and comfortable. And were you able to see any of the plants in Kashmir or anything growing when you were there?
Yeah, it's all over the roads.
Because when I was in the winter, there was nothing. It was all.
Yeah.
I was
Grows wild all over.
It
Yeah.
does. I only imagine that's how it must be.
Yeah.
Wow. So for most of the listeners, you really owe it to yourself someday, almost in Franco's name, some of these guys, you get out there and in the tradition of you and some of your friends, go see what it
But
looks
don't
like.
go to Thailand thinking you're going to get great Thai pot.
Tell us
'cause
about that.
All the Thai pot came from Laos.
Yeah, no, that's
know?
pretty well known at this point in time.
The Thai stick was a myth.
Well, it was done, but it wasn't by us, Americans going over there and being like, well, this stuff's a lot easier.
Well, it wasn't Thai stick.
The Laotian government paid people to grow
And it
thousands
wasn't Thai,
of
it
acres.
was
yeah,
Laotian,
it was
yeah.
Laotian, yeah. Because I went to Thai, like the first time I went there, like I thought, oh, there's going to be good Thai pot. Hard to find.
Right.
For sure. That's where, I brought my own hash when I was there, and I didn't. Everywhere I saw weed, I was like, "Wow, I'm so glad I brought some hash with me 'cause this is terrible."
That's the case now, and now with the groovy pens, all y'all can be out there in most of these places and get away with it. I don't know if I'd risk Malaysia, probably. Actually, it's funny. As a cannabis activist, I was like, fuck Malaysia. I'm never going there. They kill people, And then it turns out my buddy Ben has a spot in Malaysia, and he lives there. And he's one of the most heavy-duty cannabis guys in the world. I'm like, what the fuck, Ben? But he's like, no, it's cool, man, it's cool. And then they run out there with their medical, Amsterdam medical. Yeah, I'm talking about Ben from Sensi Seeds and Hemp Flax for some of you that don't know. And they get their medical from, and then they have a statement. They actually do take the time to run down to the Malaysian. Talk about balls. They run down to the Malaysian embassy there in the Netherlands, and they get a little printout and talking about their cannabis medicine, and that's how they get high out there. When I went out there, I was paranoid as hell. I cleaned the lint out of my ass, and, But then I went down there, and sure enough, the customs was totally cool. Everybody was really welcoming, beautiful country. Yeah, and
Upstairs.
yeah. Sure. Anyhow, on that note, beautiful country. But when I got there, I saw pictures of Bob Marley. I saw banners, the typical tourist stuff that you see. Tried to ask around for it, but everybody's like, "No, Mister, no, they kill you for this. But don't try to do it here." So that was.
Well, you have any time if you ask anybody anything, they're already sketched out in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Whoa, this guy, what's he coming up to me for?
So that's been the interesting part of being world traveling cannabis activist and enthusiast and landrace investigator and researcher is sometimes you have to go through customs checks and it's usually pretty friendly and you never try to go through with anything if you can help it, unlike our friend here who'll be right back with us.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's weird. I always used to carry weed with me everywhere I went, like didn't matter where I went. And then America used to be so off limits in my brain, but now it's the opposite. Now I feel like I could travel anywhere in America.
In America, no problem.
I just don't really know if I want to go anywhere international.
Apparently, some of the airports in California are letting the kids fly out with a whole bunch of it. As what
people are going with pounds.
Pounds, like carry on.
Yeah.
Not to make it totally public, but
it's
pretty public.
Definitely, if you're flying within California, airport to airport, no problem.
And even out of California.
And if you're flying to a friendly here in Colorado, they've already said they absolutely are not going to call anybody ahead and say, "Oh, this guy's carrying." They don't care.
I actually, as a matter of course, just to be legitimate, I'm trying to be a legal person these days, and always, of course. But I went.
Look at you! You're barely hanging in there.
I went to the Oakland airport, right, and I had some
with a new trick, the okey doke.
With the okey doke. I know that. So I had my I was trying to okey doke him in Oakland. But then I decided, I don't really want to okey doke them, and I'm feeling pretty strong and pretty confident. But I went ahead, and when you get through the little TSA, there's a little Oakland Police Department airport police right there, and I said, hey guys, hey, can I have a moment of your time? Excuse me, I'm a California medical marijuana patient, and I need to travel, and I need my medical marijuana, and as a matter of course, being here, how much cannabis would you say would be okay if I take with me here through this checkpoint and into your lovely airport and onto a plane? And I point blank to the police. Mm-hmm. And the lady said, "Well, sir, I think 8 ounces should be about enough. I think that's all. We have a policy of accepting up to 8 ounces." And I was like, "Okay, good. I'm going to bring 5 pounds the next time."
8 ounces is nice. Half pound is a good deal.
That's why I said that's pretty legit. Fair enough. You know what I mean?
They said just half pound of whatever. So you bring half pound of hash, of course.
All right. I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow.
And it's worth something.
So apparently, under the Farm Bill of 2014. If you are having a hemp farm anywhere in the country, if your state allows for hemp, now hemp is federally legal as long as it comes from one of those acceptable states that has one of these memorandum of understanding farms or a USDA extension.
Is this your Gallagher moment?
Is it a Gallagher moment?
Are you going to pull the box out and get all crazy?
Yeah, I'm going to pull
Okay, good. But Gallagher moment.
Gallagher moment. So
there's a Gallagher moment coming.
So my farmer buddy, I bought some stuff. I made 100 pounds of THC coconut oil. CBD coconut oil. That's going to be on the market here before too long in all 50 states from Crucial advertisements. No, I got to pay you. No, anyway, sorry, Adam. Anywho, I got to pitch myself, right? Well, he gave me a box of just tops to see what I could do with, and I showed this to Adam, and I nearly swindled. I nearly okey-doked him. Right, I nearly okey-doked him. I was like, "Oh, how much?
You tried.
How much you want for that?"
I'll give you that,
dude. But it's gnarly, dude. It's crystals. It's beautiful, man. I almost okey-doked the producer over here.
I'm the producer.
Yeah. No, he these are buds, folks. It's a box of buds, like over a pound. And I'm going to have some letter from the Department of Agriculture of the state of Colorado.
You're not gonna. You have one, right?
Well, no, I have it. I'm
Okay,
going
good.
to
I'm making
carry
sure.
it with me for
Okay,
sure.
good. I'm just making sure.
I have it with me.
I'm gonna have it.
No.
I don't have it. I'm getting on a flight.
And soon we'll have these flowers available in all 50 states. So look for them in your local smoke shop. Another pitch from Crucial Hemp. All right, enough
Well,
of
you
that.
did you see Richard Rose's?
That's the only other guy in the world that I've been hearing about.
Oh yeah, you
but
and
I
him.
heard about
You
it
and him
after
are
I
two-
had the idea.
You
Of
and
course,
him
we
are
know.
two. His is the Nobacco.
Well, I didn't go to war with him.
His is
over
Nobacco.
I didn't go to war with him
Trademarked.
over the hemp nut. I thought well, that's
Nobacco.
Nobacco.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wizard
So don't
smoke.
use that
Where'd
word,
that go?
or else you're in
Okay.
trouble.
And so what is it? Is it like a pouch? Is it
Same
cigarette
idea, but he just he didn't really have. I didn't see a finished product. I just saw the.
Is he ballsy enough to actually sell it to anybody yet?
He is. I think so. He's
me,
definitely
like-
ballsy enough. You know that.
He's pretty ballsy, man. Richard's cool, man.
He's one of those guys.
Controversial,
Of course, he's
as we all are.
Yeah, no, he definitely he's toned down. Like everybody, he's toned down a little bit though.
Cool.
Little
Well, you know,
But
I
he's
tell you what, you
still
know,
wily as
let's
others.
just go ahead since we're pitching people's company. You know, Hemperella is number one, right? Can you still get Hemperella?
His product Temperella.
Yeah, remember that shit?
Yeah, I don't
Was
know
it
if you can get
still-
it. I don't know if you can get it. I don't think so.
Holy moly, was that stuff gnarly, dude?
He had some. He was. He was.
Oh, sorry, Richard, if you're listening.
He was groundbreaking. Though.
It was groundbreaking. It was cool. You had hemp cheese before anybody did, and I don't think anybody's had it since. Actually,
Well, hemp cheese. I mean, the thing is, it was one of. It was gnarly. It was like we're not trying to make hemp Vita or whatever. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Real cheese.
I guess if you're like one of these vegan creeps, you know what I mean?
Well, look,
like
you,
I was.
you are. Come on. You must be.
Fucking Nutello of the cannabis industry, or the hemp industry.
Oh, holy moly.
But he did have a lot of products. It was like one. He was
no,
talking.
the other stuff was alright.
Like he had about 20 different
Sharon's
things.
finest, yeah, no, amazing man.
He cut his hair now. So it's a totally different.
I wouldn't be able to pick him out of a lineup. But you know, like the whole hemp nut war, you know, thing was.
Were you on a hemp nut war with him?
No, I wasn't, but everybody else was.
Everybody who used the
I'm
word,
peace
because he
out.
really wanted everybody to use his name.
Yeah, hemp nut was going to be trademarked and stuff, or you know.
But was he mad because you used it or because you didn't use it?
I never tried to use it.
See, that was the thing. I thought he got mad when you did.
He was mad because
you're
people
calling
wanted
for
to use it. Now we have Nutiva hemp nut, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, John. That's my thing, hemp nut. You have Nutiva dehulled hemp seeds.
Oh yeah, you're back on the war again.
No, I have no opinion about it. I think it's all good.
Shots fired.
Shots fired! I'm telling you, the nut. Our own hemp
People
nut.
hate it, and then, you know. Also, since we were talking about past activists, there's Jack, give thanks. So Dennis was a big part of that. Dennis Cicero, I think, from remember him? He had this hemp New York City hemp food joint. Anyhow, early. We're talking way back, So anyhow, yeah. Give thanks, and I'm sure you lost some folks along the way of your adventures in some of these escapades. Was anybody ever? You obviously had spent some time in prison over it. And some of your friends certainly did.
The Brotherhood member that I knew, they blew him away. They surrounded his house. He tried to get out the window. He was unarmed, and they blew him away with a shotgun.
The police did.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So yeah, there were people who passed.
Yeah.
I lost a couple of friends who were in the coke. They had cranial aneurysms, but no, there wasn't a lot of like life and death stuff. I mean, like you were putting yourself at risk that way, but somehow it mostly worked out.
Just good people trying to get the job done together.
Yeah, it mostly worked out.
Coming up with a solid plan, logistics.
And there weren't, we never had guns at each other or any of that bullshit.
Somebody didn't pay. What happened?
You don't front him anymore.
Hanging by his toes over the Golden Gate. What did y'all do then?
There were at very rarely times when
sometimes you feel it.
Yeah, a door got kicked in and someone read the Bible, as they used to say.
So now looking back on all that and trying to have a more, let's say, wiser perspective for some of you listeners out there that might have a guy out there that might owe you some bucks or something. It was more. At least you guys were trying
just give
your
me
best.
a call. I'll take care of it.
Yeah, you guys were trying. I think compared to some of the other outfits to be a little more tolerant and peaceful on some of that stuff, right? Or what?
Yeah, but it was known that you don't.
It's unfortunate.
I mean, the mindset wasn't to screw other people. Those people, those
they didn't
lower,
get in, right?
those consciously lower level people.
You didn't let them in.
No.
And if you did,
And it would be real obvious.
Bad.
It would be pretty obvious. Like if someone was of a mindset where you knew they were going to try something.
If you let them in, it's your bad.
Yeah.
And that's
like
what
the
we
Brotherhood
we
were
all need to
mostly
learn.
Kriya yogis. They were really conscious
Om
people.
Kriya Babaji Nama Om.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is the code is slowly eroding. It's kind of like the Constitution and the underground codes are at the same level. Like they're just eroding quickly as we speak. Like things you thought were just set in stone aren't really there anymore because now people are.
I know the mandatory
The
minimum
loyalty
is
factor is not there, and also the thing is it's such a techie thing. So now it's all like you got caught up in something, they got you in a little phone deal, and now like they just work their way up the fucking ladder just like they have always done. And people who have never kind of grown up in our sort of places that or people that we've dealt with, and how we've known, like you're whatever you do, it's a handshake. You better fucking come through. You don't come through.
People's
word. You're cut off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kind of we took care of each other so good that it was hard for people at a certain point to get into the game just because, again, they have no fucking.
And if someone screwed
stripes,
you,
you know?
like there weren't that many people involved in the whole thing back in the early 70s
So everybody
up
heard
to the
about it.
80s. Yeah,
But now it's all about screwing.
They were
each other.
out.
Now people screw each
There's
other.
too many
real quick.
people now.
Yeah,
It's
well, people,
now there can be just
Tens
assholes
of
that are taking
thousands,
millions
yeah.
from one another.
Yeah.
And they're just off in some other state doing some other thing, doing their thing, and
I mean,
and ongoing.
It is like, we can do a little Facebook justice and blast people and, slow them down a little bit. Sometimes but it is weird because everybody's a different person now. Like back in the day, it was like you had to call a couple people, vet them, check it out. Now it's like, if you don't know who somebody is, first thing you do is go to your phone. What's the guy's name? Check on his thing. Now that Facebook's made everybody use their real names, it's easy to find people. It used to be like, fuck, what's his real name? No, dude, I don't know. It's fucking, we call him, whatever. Look at this
Mr.
guy.
Nice.
And then all of a sudden, you're like trying to chase. No, now everybody's names are real, and it's like weird. Everyone's a cop. You know what I mean? Everyone's like checking on people, and it's just like it literally. And you'll see people just blatantly rip people off and disappear into the
Or
into
not,
into
or
the
be,
night,
or
and then
be
pop
so
back
bold,
up
or
again.
or be so bold as to not disappear these days because there doesn't seem to be a lot of consequence because there's not that old bond and trust. You don't have guys that are like, hey, you're really putting your ass out there for us by being out and flipping Lebanon, and we're gonna make this come through for you, dude, because we got you, and you don't have that these days because it's all about me,
Yeah.
Well,
that's-
people are thinking that
It's great to
cannabis
hear
is-
these stories.
That's the mindset in the country.
It's great to hear these stories where he did have these.
I mean, look
brothers.
who's becoming president. It's all about me, right?
Yeah.
He's the prototype.
by the way, for some of you listeners, apparently during the inauguration, you're invited to be down in Washington, D.C. and give marijuana away. You can give away up to 2 ounces. We're not encouraging to smoke during the inaugurations. We're not trying to fight with the Trumpers. But apparently in D.C., it's legal to give away 2 ounces. So if you got an extra 2 ounces, give away some pre-rolls down there at the inauguration, please, at the inauguration.
And don't watch it on TV.
if you're there.
Maybe you should, actually. Watch me on TV give away
No,
joints.
don't watch it.
The
Don't.
lowest ratings
Yeah,
would
we don't
really
wanna-
blow him out of the water.
Yeah, don't
he could
watch
have
it.
he could have like a heart attack
Yeah,
having the
go
lowest
live.
ratings
Go down
ever.
there live and cause a ruckus, but don't actually
So
watch
for
it.
all you listeners out there, too, y'all know that.
I mean, that's the hard part. Is it's like saying there's going to be a really big car crash. You guys don't watch it. You know what I mean? We're all like, fuck yeah. we're watching
marijuana
that,
business
'cause
is going to be great.
That's the problem. Everyone wants to see the train wreck, but just
Marijuana-
don't watch it on the main networks. Stream it off of somebody else.
Marijuana business is going to blow up, y'all. And it might go back to being black market, but it's going to be rocking because everybody's going to be so motherfucking and stressed out with this dude. I mean, you just
It's
smoke
come too far
you
to
smoke
go back.
twice as much.
Should have one guy watch it. One guy should watch it, and everybody should periscope it off that one guy, and then that way he gets like a rating of 1. Like one guy watched your thing, but everyone get a chance to watch it if they want to.
Instead of 30 or 40 million, like
Yeah,
It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be great.
it's gonna be the best.
You're going to love it.
It's gonna be the best for sure.
oh god, let's change the topic.
Yeah, for sure. We
I don't
try
wanna
not to
get
give him
sick.
we try not to give him too much merit on the show anyway. So the other so you're basically between the runs that you were doing back in the day, were you comfortable enough to just sort of like kick it after a while and like not deal with any of that, or did you just kind of have to change gears and start growing and doing other stuff and like for yourself?
After I got busted for the federal thing, I never smuggled after that again.
Yeah, well, definitely could knock the wind out of the sails, literally, for a little while.
Yeah, it was.
It's intimidating, and you know your family's at stake, and they got your everything, and all you can see is yourself getting out of prison.
What year was that?
As a homeless old person.
85.
Yeah, so that was like literally, like the shitty.
I went to
times.
trial 2 weeks after Nancy Reagan said, "Just say no."
Yeah,
to
that was like
drugs.
the prime time.
2 weeks
Fuck.
after.
Yeah,
Fiction.
yeah, and that's when it was.
It was totally toxic to talk about anything with marijuana.
I was like a
at that
junior
point.
in high school then, and it was just like, oh, I can't wait. And I left the day after we graduated, like literally the day after. I was like, I'm out of here later. Went to Australia, and it was like, but it was so just.
Yeah, during the Reagan era, I was the only person to win an appeal who got convicted by a jury on a drug case
Wow.
federally.
well, that
That's
was
how bad it was.
yeah.
And you know, like
And
I
it
actually
cost you-
paid.
It cost you a lot.
I paid 2 law firms $50,000
Mhm.
after, you know, like I got convicted and I was still out on bail.
Which is like $200,000 right now, probably, or something like that. You know. Give or
Yeah,
take.
it was, that was just a fraction of what I had to pay the lawyers for the trial and shit.
Yeah.
And I said, tell me what my chances are, because I still had some money stashed, passports,
Ready to split.
another name, you know, the whole, you know, I was ready to go. But I realized I had a daughter, and I realized if I did split, I'd never be able to see her again because they'd follow her to me.
Mhm.
And both of the law firms came back and said, you'll probably win your motion to stay out on bail till the appeal's heard, because you're on, you know, you haven't violated, you know, being out. And so I paid $100,000 to hear, you know, that, but I wouldn't win my appeal. They said there's not a prayer in hell you win your appeal, because it's Reagan America. The whole judicial system at this point is totally toxic to drugs. Doesn't matter if it's pot or not. So I was going back and forth in my head. I was going nuts, like trying to figure, because I had to fly to prison. I had to pay for my ticket and check myself into prison.
Real stand-up guy.
Yeah?
Real stand-up guy.
Who the fuck wants to do that?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
love
It's not
for
a-
your family and love for your people
So
for not
I
snitching.
was in Marin. I was staying in a hotel in Marin, and I'm sitting there, and I'd been meditating for a lot of years, and I'm praying, like, you know, like, what should I do? And this voice, I have no explanation for this. It sounds la-la, but this voice, as loud as the radio that people are listening to now, said, you will lose your motion for appeal bond, but win your appeal, which is exactly the opposite that I was paying to hear. So I heard this voice, and it was so strong, I actually went to prison and hired a different lawyer, and 10 months later won my appeal.
Man of faith.
So what is that? You know, predestinate. I mean, what?
It's like doing like going into an ayahuasca trip and knowing what you want to know. Like, I want to know this, and then there's people that have literally had cancer and went into that ayahuasca trip wanting to just understand what they had, and then getting told the actual gene code, and going back to the doctor and saying, well, what about this number? And
Yeah.
the guy going, wait a minute, that actually makes sense. And then looking back and going, you're right, there it is. There's a mutation right there. So it's like, if you kind of, I think if you're in a desperate situation, your body's going to give you pretty much, if you're lucky, that one little boost of enough. Because you know that when you said that the radio,
Well, there's definitely
when it was
higher
as-
realms.
when it was as loud as the radio. I mean, there's times where, you know, I'm not even sure what it is, but it feels like I don't know if it's like a mild seizure or something. But I've had two times where I've heard like the volume get up like just out of nowhere from just something like a THX kind of beginning of a movie or something, where you're like, where the fuck is that coming out of it? No, it's coming out of your head right now. You know what I mean? But it's either it's some connection, or could be something physical too, because it could be something where you're and stress could bring that on. You know what I
I'm
mean?
with
And
him though. There's something more than that. There's something going on out there, and we got to give credence to it.
of course,
There are higher dimensions. I mean,
You
there's
know.
definitely.
Well, you were on a different
yeah.
vibrational thing at that point, is what it was. It's all vibrations, really, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of like the reality. And you take acid, you're there's different frequency right there. I'm fucking
Yeah.
there. I'm in it. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's right there, but we can't see it because we're not tripping right now. Maybe later when I'm hanging out with him. Has been known to happen.
It has.
But in general, it's very, at that point, and it seems so normal at that point, we're like, yeah, of course, it's a frequency. But that's just when you're
Well,
there.
no, I was actually shocked and looked around like, who the hell said that?
Uh-huh.
I mean, because it was like a voice, like you're speaking now.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
awesome.
it was, where did that come
Well,
from?
at least it was telling you the right message. You know what I mean? It wasn't like
Yeah.
guiding you in the complete wrong direction.
I was swinging on a vine one time, like really off of a high ravine, and the vine broke, right? So I'm like flying through the air, and I literally heard a voice that wasn't my own. It told me, keep my tongue out from between my teeth. When I hit, compress, and try to roll out of it. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as that voice had finished telling me that, I experienced what I would call omnipresence. Everything got really still. I could hear birds chirping, sun rays through the trees, and then gravity grabs me and pulls me down. Next thing you know, I'm hitting. This is about a 45-foot fall, and it knocked me clean out. But the thing is that distinct voice, like, you know, these other things I could have probably thought of, like compress and roll.
A lot of
but
people
keep
think
your
we have
tongue
total
from
free will. I
between your
think this
teeth.
is a guided trip. It's
Yeah.
really a guided trip.
Yeah.
You know, we're all being guided back to source.
It certainly feels that
Probably a
way.
bunch of tongues at the bottom of that ravine there.
Go on.
Exactly.
Don't lose your tongue, boy.
Right.
It's a whole
Well, I
bottom full
needed
of
it to
tongues.
tell you this.
I'm sure when you're out there on some of your missions, you know, you get that feeling: do I turn right or do I turn left to make this all go down right?
Yeah,
that's part of
and there's a
that
little
intuition.
voice inside your head that if you're quiet enough, you know, like it usually tells you what's right.
And some of your yoga practice and whatnot help you hear some of that.
Yeah, to be
potentially.
quiet enough to hear.
Which, you know, some of the things it sounds like you were doing, you are fortunate too. And I know there's some guys that probably are having to spend their whole life in prison over it, and so maybe some of that could be attributed to that decision-making process that you went through potentially. You know, I think, you know.
Who knows?
Either way,
When I hear someone saying they know how things work, it's like, whoa,
yeah,
you know, back right off with that
for
one.
certain.
Because it is a mystery.
We're all just trying to understand, you know,
Yeah.
you know how I could be talking to a guy
We're all huffing it.
that's done all these amazing things in his life and still be here. To
We were chatting the other day, and you mentioned, no, was that maybe it was a conversation we had earlier already? But was that Pakistan trip where you were shipping it out with like in airlines, just big crates
Yeah.
and stuff? Okay, that was
Yeah.
that was the same discussion, right? So
Yeah.
we've already covered that. We've covered that trip.
Well, there was one interesting thing. The time which I mentioned earlier that this guru had told me to go smuggle again. So I got a load together, and I had been doing 500 pounds at a time. I decided to do 1,000 just because he wanted so much money, and like I needed some myself. So everything went well, and I'm waiting down the road for the supervisor to come with the truck with the crates in the back. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And I call up, and the flight had landed hours earlier. And I'm getting nervous at that point. So I call up his office because he was the airline supervisor and said, "What's up?" You know, he said, "Oh, it's hot. It's no good." I said, "How do you know that?" And he said, "Oh, it's got to be." So I said, "I'll be right there." So I drove,
right into
walk
it.
in his office, act like I'm
Lions Den.
missing baggage and stuff, and said, "What's up?" And he took me around the corner, and right by where they stored lost luggage, there are all the crates, right? And two of them had forklift holes in them,
Oh.
and you could see the
Oh,
hash
boy.
stacked.
Oh boy.
And they were right by, there was
Lamps.
also a couple of coffee machines and junk candy and stuff, right? You know, like within a few feet. So I'm going around, and at this point, like, everybody's a Fed, right? The woman with the baby stroller's a Fed. I mean, everybody. And then a couple of this. So I'm looking around, trying to suss things out for about, I don't know, it seemed like hours, but it was probably 15, 20 minutes. And then a couple of Philadelphia cops, who, by the way, look like like Nazi cops. I mean, with their leather hats and their
Sure.
high leather boots and stuff. They walk over to the vending machines right by the crates and buy coffee, and they're standing there chatting. And I realized that
Golden.
moment,
Golden.
it was totally cool.
Yeah, no one's on it.
Yeah. So I went in the office and I put every cent I had into getting this load there, right? And I said, "Where's your truck?" He said, "Oh, I didn't rent it." I said, "What?" I had like $15 or $20 in my pocket, and I called a couple of companies to rent a truck. It was like $100 cash if you didn't have a credit card. Not everybody had credit cards, you know, that in those days in the 70s. So he went around and we got $100 cash together. I went and got the truck, came back, and there was a guy who was helping people with luggage, and he had one of the carts you put things on, right? So I said, "You want to earn $20? Put those crates in the back of the truck." Right? So he put the crates in the back of the truck. I gave him $20. I get behind the wheel, and my body starts to shake. I never had the shakes before. My body starts to shake. Then there's a tap on the window. I look over, there's a cop. I roll down the window, like with my mask on, like and I say, "Yeah, what's up?" And he said, "Move it. Get it out of here." In the meantime, my body's shaking. I had to hold my hand to put the key in the ignition and then keep a hand on my knee because my leg was shaking so much and drive slowly out.
Yeah, it's never good, especially because if you have clutch in the car, obviously back then too. So then you're like, clutch works hard. You're like, yeah. I've definitely had the leg shake driving moment where you're like, holy shit, and then like it hits you when you realize. But that's so. What was it? What was the weight you had in there at the time?
It was a ton.
A ton.
2,000 pounds.
Wow.
Wow.
And like you said, you weren't even really hiding it. It was just in there, like pretty much.
Well, the wooden crates with the stainless steel.
Yeah.
Not the stainless steel, the sheet steel.
Yeah, they had sheet steel. They were
But the
heavy.
bottom's just pumped out, and that was it. It was just dropped out.
Yeah, there were holes like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches, however long the forklift.
Yeah. Skewered.
Wow. Yeah, that's like in the Orange Sunshine movie that you have to now watch now because I'll tell you half the movie.
I will.
But they had one of their pretty well known techniques now, of course, was the old surfboard technique where they were
That was the first.
doing
That
small runs.
poor girl on Bali.
Ricky
Jeez.
and Jarvis and a couple of guys did that. They brought back the surfboards. Yeah.
And then they said in the movie that they had, I guess one of them got like delayed, and it got when it finally came.
It was so stupid. I mean, Afghanistan's totally landlocked. It's like when you bring a surfboard back from Afghanistan.
Right? I know. If you actually had half a brain, you'd be like, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Surfing. That's interesting.
I don't think
But he
that's-
had like, they had leaned it up against the wall, and it was in the sun, so it all just kind of opened up. All the hash opened up, which then squeezed itself out of the bar. And it was inside of bags, and then when he went to lift the bags, they found kind of broke apart. And they were like, "Oh, what's this?" And they let the guy pick it up. Did the classic, followed him back to the camp, and helicopters landed and they busted everybody. And that was one of the kind of the beginning of the end for that group. As far as like that's when they were on the map. And then it was like, on top of that, I mean, the amount you could fit in a couple surfboards is really not worth the.
It was an
the heat that
adventure at the time. It
Oh, for
wasn't how
sure.
much money you could get. It was like an adventure. I mean, like I was one of the earliest doing hash, like to bring back quantity. I mean, because the guys were doing surfboards or doing phony suitcase bottoms and
Yeah.
stuff, and I was doing crates full.
Sure.
And then went from there to boats. So, but
No, it's
it was in a galaxy far, far away in a time long forgotten.
Sure, and now I think, interestingly enough, though, some of these countries are going to get pretty, especially, obviously Jamaica already jumped on board. Other places that are cannabis sort of, rich as far as their history, obviously are going to see the other countries jumping on board and be like, well, fuck, if America's doing it, and
Then the tourism will go up. I mean,
leading the charge. You know what I mean? Once they accept it, and the problem is that we've contaminated every place by
Drug laws.
putting together these ridiculous things that make it so people can't can't like promote that at all. And if they do, then we cut them off. And it's just like, really, like. But now places that have been pretty independent, like Jamaica and stuff, are are going to hopefully prove it. I mean, the problem is it has to be a tourist-driven thing. You know,
Didn't Portugal also decriminalize?
a long time ago, a long time ago. Like
there's some.
And
Most
Uruguay
of the civilized
and,
world.
and South America?
Uruguay, yep. There's a cup going on at the end of the month this month there, and it's like the 5th annual, I think, or something like that. The
I'm
cup,
not sure.
the
I'm not
Uruguay
sure.
cup they do.
Is it April or something?
No, it's this month. It's
always-
because it's summertime there, you know. So
Sure.
so it's definitely breaking. I mean, we see it. South America.
Chile's talking
I mean,
about
the
Argentina.
only place that's going to be a hard nut to crack will be Asia, just because.
Now, last year I was in Central Asia, trying to find different landrace varieties there just because my heart is warm to the adventure side of it, and knowing the genetically its proximity to Pakistan and Afghanistan. There's even talk of it. Some varieties, certainly traditionally coming from there, and then along the Silk Road, cannabis being traded for millennia up and down in those areas, and certainly interbreeding happening as a result. I went on a trip to Kazakhstan and then Kyrgyzstan, across the border in Kyrgyzstan, to look in the traditional Shu Valley for cannabis. And what I found there is indeed that there is some willingness of the government to understand that there's 70,000 wild acres of cannabis growing in the Shu Valley may be an asset to them. And the daughter of the president, Sultan Nuristan or something, I forget. Anyways, she's promoting cannabis to her dad and trying to get the word out, and certainly there's been some writing about it. And but once again, there's all these penny stock people are trying to jump on board, and things are being built. Government money's being spent, and nothing's really happening.
One thing I'd really like to do, because the quality of the pot, like going towards the source of the Ganga, where those high valleys at the base of the
highest
Himalayas,
of the high, yes, sir.
And the charas there is so good. It's like a mountain sativa type, because it's psychedelic and yet tasty and delicious. I'd love to go with a few guys, and like with horses and some guides, and go, like to half
Some of
a
those
dozen
old
different
places, huh?
valleys back there. And besides getting totally stoned out of our gourds, get some seeds.
Get some
of those genetics.
Yeah, that's something that Franco had done with Aryan in the greenhouse. They had gone up into those. I think they went to like Poverty or
Parvati. Yeah,
Parvati,
that's behind Manali.
That's
yeah.
behind Manali up in Himachal Pradesh state.
Himachal Pradesh,
Himachal Pradesh state. Yeah, and that's one of the trips that you can see on Strain Hunters. They went in those areas, but certainly every valley is going to have its particular inbred
flavor,
line that you're going to be able to find particulars because of the way the Himalayan airstreams and valleys work. There's very limited cross-pollination.
Sure, that is definitely a point right there, just because that's what cannabis always tends to stabilize at a certain range wherever it's at, and a lot of, like when it's in CBD-rich place, or CBD-rich sort of varieties, they'll end up at 1-to-1, like 6%, 7%. They won't get crazy spikes, but they'll be super balanced. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like the way it wants to go naturally, anyway. But there is some extremes, obviously. But I think if you were to find these IBLs that were produced in these little areas that were just, many generations, you're going to get some
stable stuff that you can work with, right?
Yeah, you're going to get something. Well, you'd have to. I mean, it'd be interesting because I'm sure there'd be a lot of variables also, but there should be some particular.
And the growing season wouldn't be off the wall like Corella or Laotian pot, which
like
is impossible to
or
grow
whatever.
in the
Forget
States.
about it. Yeah,
because it's 5,000 to 7,000 feet up there.
I traveled to Belize a few years back, and I grabbed some jungle bush seeds and stuff from the local stuff down there.
They have some good pot.
It's great when you're there.
What is that? Mennonites.
The Mennonites,
grow pot.
The Mennonites, I grow some kind of good.
Grow
weed.
good pot.
I
smoked some
weed.
of it down. It was
pleasing.
really good.
Yeah, no.
Looked like hell. It was like very dark, almost
terrible.
blackish buds, but strong.
Yeah. So I cracked some of
those Mennonites.
I cracked some of those. I cracked some of those in Shasta County, Northern California.
I didn't even know there were Mennonites till I went down there.
Yeah. So I cracked some of those Mennonite seeds because I think it was for the Orange Walk area, or maybe Coyote. Anyhow, I cracked some of those seeds up there, and I by the time the police took my garden in September, I was just barely starting to see if it was a boy or a girl. But I tell you, every day the thing grew a foot. It was amazing. It was like bamboo. I was like, holy shit.
I had some South African seeds when I lived in Arizona, and I hadn't grown much pot at all. I didn't know dick about like all the different fertilizer, like what. But anyway, I put it. But there was a blackberry patch in the backyard where I was living, and it started to grow and grow and grow. And I realized, like, well, I only have a 6-foot fence, so I started to grow it horizontally. The first frost was the end of October that year, and the buds were like barely as big as a thumbnail.
It's pathetic, man. I mean, it's great.
But the plant was 17 foot when I got it. But there was nothing I could smoke. It needed another 6 months to.
Which is like not practical when winter's coming in North America,
But from where I was just talking about, going up into those valleys at 5,000 to 7,000 feet,
they pop.
The growing season would be similar to Kush.
Yeah,
Hindu
they pop.
Kush.
They pop. Yeah. And when I was in Kyrgyzstan in September, last September, September before last now, and when I was there, I mean, there was just seeds popping out of it, and this was like September 15th ish. And it was all just hard as a rock, super crystals, perfect hand rub.
Nice.
These little perfect hand rub little. It's interesting. You saw it growing wild all over, but you really saw it on the sides of the roads and on each side of the town for whatever reason. And then in people's backyards, just growing wild. And I think what I heard is about I didn't get a tester kit out there and I wasn't able to test anything. I'm still working on popping the seeds, and I sent some off to. A top geneticist to have a look at them and stuff. But what I found to be interesting was all the different phenotypes at that point in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, being at that latitude, were like rock hard, whether they're small or short or fat leaf or narrow leaf.
Isn't it an amazing
they were all
plant?
Rock hard and tearing.
It adapts to so many different.
It was crazy. I was seeing 16-foot tall narrow leaf varieties right next to wide leaf varieties that I didn't notice at first. I was smelling. I was like, "Where the hell are these plants?" And
in the middle of town, of course, right?
Yeah. I mean, crack out of the cracks of the sidewalks and stuff. But anyways, I'm walking around. In this particular anecdote, it was out in the field, and I was like, I smell it everywhere. And in fact, it smells stronger than the other big plants. I was like, where is this stuff? And I was stepping on it. It was only like 4 inches, completely flowered, and sea of green, like for like a mile. You know what I mean? I was like, what the?
That's cool. I mean, it's like a gnome garden or something.
Yeah,
I mean, for them they were huge.
Everybody would say ruderalis or whatever, but I guess a lot of us are trying to get out of that indica sativa ruderalis thing. And
well, this is in India again, you said? Or?
This was Kazakhstan and this particular was Kyrgyzstan, but they border each other. It's the same river valley that's famous for cannabis that supplied most of the Soviet Union. It's called the Shu River Valley, and I recommend everybody take a vacation there. Sounds kind of kooky, a little bit police statey. Don't get caught with weed, but. Hey, you're
definitely going for another locked up abroad episode.
You're not going to the beach.
Thanks to you, buddy. 3 more episodes have been created.
Oh my goodness! But I was looking for the alleged naked Kazakh horseman. I don't know if any of y'all out there heard about that, but way back in the day, apparently up in Kazakh and Kyrgyz, the way that it grows in the valleys there, it's so dense and wild for like 70,000 acres that these guys. Used to get naked and clean their horses off real good and charge through the field, and top speed and get covered in hash, and then they have their girls, pick it off of them and stuff. And I don't know if you ever heard about
That's
it.
That's quite a story. I haven't heard that one.
A lot of people don't believe me, and I went to go find the naked guys out there, but I didn't find them. But the old timers did say that there was a tradition of it. I mentioned it, and I found one old timer to say that he had indeed heard of it or knew about guys in the 80s Soviet era that had done such a thing. I talked to Aryan from Strain Hunters about it. He didn't believe me. He's like, "Oh yeah, but we go find a horse and we make it happen. You get naked." I'm like,
that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, you'll be that naked guy riding around on your horse, and then everyone will be like, "It's real. It's real."
Yeah, but you have to have the cute girls to help take it off after. Otherwise, like, why bother?
Yeah. No, they're cute out there. Really interesting looking people. Is a mix of the from the strain the time of Genghis Khan, but because of the Soviet mix up during Stalin, you have ethnic Russian people. It's a wonderful, interesting mix of folks, and the cannabis history there is rich. In the museums, you see the hemp textiles as
Sure.
as
Mr.
Adam
Clark.
and I have
Mr. Clark.
a long history of being involved in hemp together. Me with Crucial, and
Your stuff looks almost like their stuff.
It does, yeah.
You've managed to keep that traditional look.
The first pattern of Crucial hemp, Crucial Creations first.
Was a vest.
No, it was a Indian kurta. It's called a kurta. Is what the yogis are wearing. It has a side pocket. It's quite nice
that
and
makes
long.
sense.
Nice kurta.
Yeah, very good kurta. That was the very first one. In fact, I got the buttons from India that were removable with the little rhinestones
And
the
a vest.
chain.
And a vest to go with it, I'm sure.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Very good, sir. Yeah, very good. Anyhow,
Anywho.
that's our hemp thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting to see, like, and also like Mark Rose, people like that really keep it real. You know,
From
what I mean?
Nepalese, Mark Rose.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He
What's
keeps it
going
real.
on with him? Remember?
He lives here in Colorado.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Does he
Next
still
time
go
you're
back
here-
and forth to
Yeah,
Nepal?
yeah, I think he's there right now.
Is he still doing the?
His wife is here. His kids are here.
What a wonderful man.
Yeah, and when he's but he's still making all the bubble bags and stuff. So he's
I
running
see.
the factory over there and back and forth. But yeah, he's he had, I don't know, how long did he live there? 20 years, something like that.
So
About 20 years.
another old timey guy that lived in Nepal and started a Nepalese. He just decided to kind of go.
He's a
native.
hash guy though. So.
He went seriously native, and he was one of the early guys that brought cannabis textiles from Nepal. Because in the early days, we were really excited about it. All we had was Chinese. The Han had never really stopped making hemp for all those years for their funeral rites and different things. So it was a long tradition of using hemp textiles.
I have to say, the strongest hash I ever smoked was from Nepal.
And so the
Nepalese have good hash. Of course.
So it was really neat for us to
Was it
see.
Temple Ball or
It
was
was, it was called Royal Nepali. It was sold, and they had stores then.
And this goes to the argument.
Yeah, I remember the calendar. I think they had at one point.
Yeah.
This goes to the argument of is it hemp or is it marijuana? Well, certainly it's marijuana because hashish is marijuana, certainly legally, right? But what the heck is the textiles that come from the fiber? Is that marijuana or hemp? Because now you have something that's more than a 0.3%, whatever they're calling it in the EU and some of these legal states, but you have a fiber product and a paper product coming out of Nepal from cannabis. So is that hemp or marijuana? Tell me, Adam.
I mean, once it's a textile, it's definitely hemp. I mean, it's like there's no issue where it came from. But if it's if there's any flour left or if there's any actual resin on it, then
So we could say, for just terms of discussion, that hemp winds up being both a plant and a use. Let's say.
I mean, there should be. It literally should be like. Obviously, between you and me, we understand. I'd say 5% would be a good cutoff point. Above 5%, then it's like, yeah, now you're really trying to grow good bud. But at 5%, it's usable for
the
both
greenhouse
medicine.
guys were always really super pissed about about Ben's guys subsidized hemp farms and near the big grow scenes with the seed happening. And he's like, why don't you guys just grow fucking, you grow my super silver haze. I think it's best you grow my super silver haze instead of your fucking hemp, Denny, because your hemp is bullshit, man. It's fucking my seeds up, you know.
Yeah, he was never a big hemp advocate. That's for sure.
I love you, Arian. I really do.
Yeah, but he told he got real. We tried to sell him shirts way back in the day, and he was like, they're all scratchy.
Yeah, but
itchy."
dude, Arian's favorite thing is a hemp flipping hoodlum thing that you guys got. Come on, give me a break.
Is it? I don't know.
I've seen him in it.
Really?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
Get a photo next time. Send me a photo.
I think even in the fucking on the TV and shit, man.
On the TV.
I think so, dude.
God.
We should double check those facts. I don't know, but we still.
Probably not.
We love you, Arian, so much, man. Laugh with us.
So you were here in Colorado for how long? About a year?
A little over a year, yeah.
Yeah, and like you were saying earlier, you were kind of disappointed with what you saw, but you did manage. You were doing some. You got ripped this year too, huh? Isn't that?
Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
reason to leave. Like that sucks because that doesn't really happen. I mean, it does happen, obviously, but I felt like Colorado had a little bit of a better. Like I would never walk up to somebody's house in a million years, but in Colorado, especially knowing that everyone's
I didn't even think to get a security camera and all that stuff. I mean, I didn't expect it
yeah,
because I wasn't doing a large thing.
right. No, it's good to get those trail cam kind of things for animals.
Yeah, I ended up getting one, like an infrared camera that you could actually hook up to your computer or smartphone, and you could actually, with your smartphone or computer,
Zoom
you
in
could
on it.
turn the camera, like, and it sends out a beeping sound if, like, there's any movement in there, and
Right.
pretty cool. For $150, it was, but it was after
the
I got
fact.
ripped.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's great. You're like, look at this empty place. Plants.
But
over here.
they just took the tops. I like 5 to 8 foot plants, and like then I had 4 to 5 foot plants. They took all the tops about 2 weeks before I was going to harvest.
Yeah, that's like one of the things we hate the most. I mean, that's like pretty much everybody on this show, people who listen to the show. We hate to see.
Aren't you
people
supposed to grow like a quarter for the animals and bugs and stuff, and
Quarter for the rippers?
and a quarter for the police, a quarter for the rippers, and aren't you supposed to get a quarter of it?
I think that's when you do like 10,000 plants in your outdoors, and
That's why you do 10,000 plants in the national forest, right?
yeah, that's when you're not not in your own house. You don't want that to happen because it's like it's also weird too. Once you get ripped off at your own house, it really ruins the
I let
vibe
cottonmouths
of
grow
Kind
in
of
my
spoiled
grow.
the year, yeah.
yeah. It makes like fuck. Now,
3 pit bulls.
now you know someone's gonna be looking in your yard every year.
Goes
I
back
mean,
to
the right situation in Colorado, I'd be open to it, but like, not down there.
Right. Well, I mean, Florida's actually. You were from Florida. You had, like you said, you're just going to check it out now.
I'm just going there for vacation.
all right.
because their medical just kicked in, and it's.
I heard it's CBD only, though.
No, there's medical marijuana.
No, they were
Yeah.
doing a CBD.
Apparently, in the business of it, though, you need to have one of these old school 30-year-old flipping nurseries, or some crazy shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to have a
What is that?
30-year-old nursery or something like
Is
that.
that sounds super MP thingy. Is
Well,
it?
it's
Was it
terrible
MP or not to diss them? They're cool.
Well, it's just stupid
Well, that's
because
even crazier than I've heard before. I mean, a 30-year-old nursery for medical marijuana. What?
Yeah, because those are the guys that know how to grow plants. You see, the guys.
and
that
so
grow
they
fucking
and so it
orchids,
basically
you know
narrows it down to like
what I mean? Old
a
family.
bunch of old white guys. That's it. There's nobody.
I don't think
new
Who
or
there's
paid to
fresh.
get the law passed?
And there's only like 30 or some shit.
Some
you know what I
super
mean?
low number
Yeah,
of
it's
the whole state. Like
crazy.
they're like it narrows it right down.
Even my dad's out in Florida. He's like, "What the hell? How are they gonna grow? You know what I mean?"
Yeah, and it's actually it's something that they should have learned their lesson along the way, because what happened here was it was all vertically integrated in the beginning, and so you had to like do it all. So it's like even if you had no retail experience, but you're a really good grower, now you're a retail guy, and then that just hurt them. And then if you had the opposite where you were just all retail but couldn't grow, and they're like, yeah, you have to grow your own.
So
70% of your own has to come from you. So it's like, really? So I can only buy in 30% of good weed, and I can just grow a bunch of crap. And, you know what I mean? So a lot of people were out of whack right now.
We should go see if there's any soil disturbance over in Van Nuys, or no, where is it? Up in see where Jack's buried. See if there's any soil disturbance in the area there. You know what I mean? Because I just wonder. I know he'd be like having question and taking issue, but he probably at the end of the day would be like, you know what? I guess we're making strides, but geez,
Yeah, no, it's there's a lot still to be done in this industry, but it is crazy how much has changed. It's kind of a complete reverse of, there's been like a couple spurts where you were there for all of them, at least time wise, where they were like, yeah, it's going to be legal by next couple of years, and like
I remember when
70s.
Carter became president, we all thought it was going to be legal.
Yeah,
I mean,
and if you read Old High Times and
Not-
stuff, you can kind of see.
Isn't that when Willie smoked a joint at the White House during those days or something?
Yeah, it was- yeah.
Kudos to Willie too for being in it, man.
Gore
Totally.
was, getting, but yeah, it didn't happen. It didn't happen with Obama. I mean, I thought for sure it happened with Obama.
I'm surprised that he didn't do it just for his own, peace of mind, knowing that he did something that's super,
It would affect millions of people in a good way.
and gave it to somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
hopefully, dipshit doesn't.
I don't
do
know.
it.
Yeah, I think he got his balls cut off somewhere along the line.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like
He needed to smoke more of that.
next
cheese.
election.
Yeah.
my prediction is
We're
next
hooking 'em up
election.
now.
It's literally like almost the make or break part of the deal. Like if you're against it, you're not going to win, just because the momentum is already so hard. By the time we get to the next 4 years, we'll be
That's
sitting
why
at
I'm
around
surprised if-
70%. You know
if-
what I mean?
If Trump had any kind of working gray matter, why would he put someone who's so anti-pot as Attorney General? If he had any kind of gray matter working.
Just to make you mad, bro.
And it does. It makes many people mad. Like crazy mad.
I tell you, cannabis business. Look out, guys. It's time to invest. Boom.
Well, I mean, let's hope, and let's not even talk about these guys. For
Yeah.
But let's hope that
I'm talking about cannabis still.
let's just hope that the momentum and the cash flow that's already there is enough to kind of hold them back.
Well, also that one of the bases of the Republican Party is less federal influence and more state influence.
You know, if it wasn't
So
for
how would they rationalize going against the states wanting to do legal marijuana when they're all about state rights?
in the effort to be,
That's
you know,
one of their whole bases is,
in the effort to be a person of peace and a person supporting, plant freedom. Interestingly enough, we do have Republican advocates and Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, who actually helped us get some of the first cannabis seed into this country for industrial hemp. So we thank you for that. But geez, are you guys creeps? But anyhow, but let's be bipartisan. Let's work together. That's going to be beautiful. That's going to be beautiful.
Well, we had a couple months ago.
I could actually do a good one. People are saying stop, Denny, but.
So Chris Iverson was at this thing, and
Chris.
it was kind of interesting because. So what year were you talking about the first hemp seeds?
I'm
just going to blow this one right out of the water.
The first hemp seeds?
Imported for legally to grow here.
First hemp seeds legally to grow here, like legally imported, legally with DEA permit and stuff?
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's the first one I heard of.
What year was that?
2014.
I know. We're talking about 1993, buddy. 94.
I know.
So anyway,
you know what? Chris Iverson. You're right.
Yeah.
They did that Imperial Valley thing.
Exactly.
You're
And
right,
the funny
you're
part
right,
about that
you're
whole
right.
story is that me and Doug supplied the seeds.
I get them.
Me and Doug supplied the seeds. There you go.
High five.
Booyah!
That's why I ask you, man. I ask
Cool.
you. That's why I ask you.
And the funny part about it is I didn't even know for like 10, more than that, 15
Chris
years.
Iverson is not the dude. Chris Boucher.
Boucher. You're right.
Dude.
Sorry, you're right.
You got me talking about Chris Boucher and crazy Swiss cannabis craziness. You know what I mean?
Boucher's
I don't know if anybody
awesome.
remembers that.
Well, anyway.
Chris Boucher's the man.
Yeah, so
Chris
anyway.
Iverson's cool too, but
Okay.
you gotta watch the Ganja Goddess and
Too
see
many
the
Chris's.
see
Oh,
the
yeah. Chris Iverson. You're right.
If anybody wants to watch some kooky shit,
Oh, my God.
watch our buddy in the hemp field be a guru with topless girls.
He's lucky we're giving him some shout-outs. We're getting free shout-outs.
Dude, what is it? Ganja Goddess? Did you see? I never saw it, but he talked about topless
I
girls.
don't know. I know a Russian mob backed in.
It was some
something.
crazy
It was
movie.
like-
What Swiss was like, we're going to let people grow pot while we figure it out, and what he grew, like all this crazy
Yeah, it was like a hemp
Let's go back
pot
to-
field / whatever. It was one of those. It was the thing you just don't do.
Dude, I
which
saw
is
the
like
aftermath.
the naked girls in the field, and it's like, dude, do we have no storyline? But we got a lot of weed.
So apparently, look, when it
And
came to harvest, right?
And a lot of people backed it. Arian backed it, I think, even.
When it came to harvest, which was really funny, when it came to harvest, right, those kids had no clue, and they were like about 3 hours away, so they had like 5 acres of marijuana, like planted pretty close, like skunk and haze and crazy shit.
oh, that's a
So-
lot of
Yeah.
skunk and haze, man.
Yeah, I was like, and this poor ass Swiss farmer, whatever. I think they paid him.
They used
And
a combine, didn't they?
they might have. But the
Okay,
funny
so-
thing was, it came time to like get it to cure it, right? And Chris had this kind of small barn that was like hella far on some forgotten mountain, like about 2.5 hours away. And as a foreigner, you can't drive a huge vehicle, but he got the biggest one he could get. He's got 5 acres, right? He's got a little car. Now put a little car in the middle of 5 acres, and you get an idea of like. So every day now for days and days and days, he's cramming as much in this car as he can. Well, you see, when you go to get it out, cannabis starts to decompose very fast, right? And he's burning his hands as he's getting it out because it's heating up like that. In fact, talk about old smugglers. In Arizona, we have these fun traditional smugglers coming up through Sonora and stuff, and these crazy kids load these semi-trucks up sometimes with too much uncured cannabis. And they'll make it to New Mexico before that truck fucking spontaneously combusts, right? And the poor bastards have to run off into town. So it's funny how uncured product gets weird fast. And that is some of the problems with some of the cannabis that you were talking about back in the day, going through a weird kind of cure under some of these third world conditions and whatnot, not being totally ready for the market. And then you guys having to come up with creative packaging.
Yeah, we had to get vac machines from Germany that had the nitrogen. Could
the
squirt
vac?
nitrogen.
Yeah. That one.
And then the bags that we got from Germany sucked because the stems weren't right there. So we had to research that, and it turned out Japan was the only place making nylon bags that we could actually use with the vac machine. So, yeah.
Wow.
and then generators to run them because it was in the field with no electricity.
See, back in the day, sourcing your products that you need to do the job from all over the world, as we're doing today with growing, you had to do with different supplies in those days.
Well, it's amazing what's happened with pot in the past 15 years since California. I mean, it's amazing, the movement.
It really is. Yeah.
I mean, I was
really
hoping
is.
it would happen 30 years ago.
No,
but
we all were, but you'd have if you were like me, 20 years ago or more, kind of we were scratching our head thinking, geez, it looks pretty rough. I mean, it's what we want, it's what we know, and what we believe in our hearts, and we'll work for.
Well, every time something gets more and more closer to full legalization, even Colorado's not, in my opinion, not fully legalized because
it's not even close.
I don't even have this. I have not nearly the same rights as a person drinking alcohol, or the same ability.
You can't pull up with a semi in front of like a liquor store and load the all the stuff in the liquor store in your semi and drive off, and no one could stop you for it.
Right.
Yeah,
no, and here it's like just everything about it. There's like I think this one, I forget who it was, but it was Bill, this hemp guy here who was just so pissed off about the fact that they put it under the guise of treating it like alcohol, and he's like, here's 100 different ways it's not being treated like alcohol. You know what I mean? Like, show me one that is. You know what I mean? But it was like, because it is. I mean, they treat everything about it like.
And clothing. I mean, what's that have to do with getting drunk?
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that they would, with cannabis in general, make it like so strict, like close at 7, and distances from schools and distances from each other, and all these things, and like there's bars on every corner in some of these places. It shouldn't
be regulated at all. It should be a free plant, and anything else is bullshit.
We agree on that. And I mean, the thing is, now that we do have all these concentrates and stuff, it's like there is levels. Like, okay, good. Leave it for the professionals to make these concentrates, and you'll have to buy those, and that's where your tax crap will come through. And people want that, so they're lucky that. But the flowers themselves, I mean, should be definitely at a super low tax, if any, and any tax from that. I always say, like, look, recreational should easily pay for all the medical, whereas the medical's really medical. You know what I mean? Like,
so when can we start talking about reparations for guys like your friends that went through so much trouble trying to make these things happen? It's like, should there be an extra tax for that at some point? Should we start the discussions?
Could do like a fund of for the.
A lot of people really suffered over this.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And on top of, well, I mean, the hope is that most of those people get in, like, kind of boosted to the front of the line when it comes to creating products, or
that's not the case in most places. It's always like, oh, you got a felony, you can't do it.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. That's the thing. It should be actually the opposite. It should be like, oh, you got a felony for
cannabis? That's the one question.
You should go to the front of the line. You know what I mean? That proves you've been doing this for the hell of a long time.
I just went through this crazy process in Arizona to try to get a flipping license down there, right? And it was, honest to God, the most bureaucratic, difficult paperwork nightmare that I've ever dealt with in my life. I'm quite proud of myself for getting through it. I did get complete compliant applications from the state. It was the hardest thing I did. But the one question they never ask on the application, does anybody know what the hell this even is? How to grow it?
Right. Well, that's the funny part is that they've complicated it so much so fast that you're like, wow, look at all this overthought that's going into this, when really the key would be, so where's the plan? Where's the part about growing it that makes sense? You know what I mean? Where it's like, you'll be like, oh, that's just a thin line between all this other legal.
Yeah, in Arizona, apparently you get the license. It's like unlimited. You go to a county, you can grow fucking 300 acres of.
But you have a limited amount of people there, right? Right now, it's pretty like.
Well, some of these companies are going to run into that, where they're ambitious and they're growing so much, it's going to wind up.
What is the actual? Because it's only medical right now, right? So
yeah.
What is the number of patients you think?
80,000, maybe 90.
That's not too bad.
Maybe
but still,
it increases probably by like 3 a month or something.
Yeah, most of the people I know in Arizona didn't bother.
Yeah, why? You got Mexican weed for nothing. You want me to go to dispensary?
Well, they grow their own.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know. Too many guys growing. In fact, I know some guys that got in hell of trouble for it, growing down there, like really.
No, I mean, just for their own,
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, and if you there is like some loopholes you can work around and kind of grow some caregiver grows for people that live 25 miles away from a dispensary. Some kooky rules that are very difficult for anyone to really participate in down there, unfortunately, because of all of our sun. be nice for folks. But yeah, legalization isn't all quite.
No. A number of the states have really just stupid restrictive laws. Like you mentioned Florida earlier, New Jersey, New Mexico. I mean,
Well, Jersey, you would expect nothing less. Nothing less than the most
I was surprised about that.
asinine law that you'd be like, what the hell does that mean? And how many? Like, it's like New York, too, with the number of dispensaries that they limited it to. It's just like, it doesn't make sense. There's so many people in that, just in New York City alone, but then the state is not too small either, you know? We start looking at it, and yeah, it was there's some very badly thought out formats that people have come up with, which were all going to go into litigation and all going to be like overturned. Everything's going to be like revamped pretty quickly. Even in Colorado, like the new laws that came in, you're just like, are you kidding me? Like that is like a shitload of new laws coming in, and it's like someone's just sitting diligently working 24/7 to complicate our lives and make it more and more difficult. So
Oregon throws a new thing out about every 45 minutes on their website. You know, a new thing that you can and can't do down there. You know,
right? And I mean, it is like as far as when you do develop a team, I guess your person who's doing your compliance is actually one of the most important people, just because if you're not, because none of us want to deal with that, you know what I mean? And if something does change every 45 minutes and you're like literally on your way down to perjure yourself at some moment because they're like, what are you doing? You know, you can't do that. You
so
know?
when are you guys coming to inspect my acre that I just put the $10,000 fence up for?
And that is the thing. A lot of people got to get like, you just have to be on the right side of your project or your investment, or like, you know, and if, because of this dynamics that's going on, if you're at the right side at the right time, kill it, you know what I mean? But the problem is most of those people that do it real quick, build it real fast, and move on, and that's kind of goes against my style, because I mean,
Hempworks never did that, but I heard you guys just like left. What's happened to the flipping?
It's gone. Oh, man. Oh,
you guys were there online.
Yeah, well, that was the problem. We were doing better online than we were at the shop.
But it was
and
so fun, Adam.
I know, but I was gone. That was the problem. It was over,
Well,
bro.
Doug's cool with.
Yeah, but Doug didn't really like the shop very much, so it was just a bunch of Polish girls working there that, you know, so
There were a few.
kind of lost its vibe a little bit, because we just played drum and bass in the back, and like, that was it. We had a vibe. We had a vibe, you know. There was something going on. Now you go in and it's like all weird. Well, it was, I should say. It was good, but it was definitely like trying to be more pro and
in Amsterdam.
yeah, the shop there. But we were there a long time. We were there for 95 to 2010. So
That's a commitment to the plant, and that's a commitment to education.
It was.
Crusoe's been here since '93.
Yeah,
You know,
and we
kinda
started our first place in
little
93.
flaky
93 was a
sometimes.
good year. 93 was a weird hemp year. It was like the year that everybody who, at least in our obviously age group, that was when you got the like ding, oh, I got it. I wanted to do this. This is what I want to
You
do.
mean you can make clothes out of it too, and you can smoke it?
Yeah, it was just like, I was all about it for about 4 years before that, since around 89. So from about 89 to 93 was the build-up, you know what I mean? And it was like Red the Emperor, and over, and it was all wrinkled and rolled up, and I was like showing people everything, and just like kind of like, it was almost like if you had, like now everybody gets on their phone and, you know, shows each other stupid shit like I do all the time, like, look at that, you know, but back then it was like, it was that moment where I could like sit at the table and
look at this.
like, look, you gotta,
Mom, Dad.
and then people would be like, huh, never thought about it.
Father Cannon, look.
Or weirdly enough, a lot of times
It's
it
God's
was
plan.
people already knew about it. Oh, I know about that. And you're like, really? Well, what the fuck aren't you doing something about it? You know what I mean? Like people know, especially in Holland, everybody there was like, we knew this. I'm like, well, let's do it. Let's make something out of it. But, you know, the cool part was to see Jack, he used to come by the showroom and see what we were doing, and it was cool. He could see that he was excited that we were like, things were happening. You know? But that was like already, you know, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I don't know if he would. I think now he'd be a little bit. He'd be
Dismayed.
the classic guy that would be starting a whole new thing against all the corporate weed money and all the everything.
And we're gonna legalize mushrooms.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. That would be him for sure. And
Love you, Jack. Om Shanti.
you know, so some people, you know, like they had the Jack Herrera Awards in Vegas.
The
and
Jack Herrera Award.
Yeah, Jack Herrera Awards in Vegas. And
I
I was
didn't
like,
hear about that one.
yeah, it was weird. It was like, I couldn't go. I was like, I'm not going to that. And then I saw it later, and it was like a bunch of chicks dancing on stage, and you're just like, this isn't really good. Jack wouldn't have been in it.
He likes the chicks
He
dancing.
loves the chicks, but But this is the way it was all put together. It was a little too flashy and weird, and I don't know.
Vegas.
Nothing like that fashion show that you guys did
Oh,
in '95. That
which
wasn't
one?
that wasn't flashy. And
Which
weird
one?
With the Misty Rain as the centerpiece.
Oh, that was a good one.
It wasn't flashy and weird.
Of course, it was flashy and weird. That's all we knew. We had nothing.
Dude, that was flashy and weird as shit, bro.
Flashy and weird.
But perfect, man. I don't know if is that on YouTube?
I don't know.
You guys got to put it on YouTube. That's just rad, dude.
It was pretty old
Ask
stuff.
Misty, but I think it would have to be like X-rated in the end there.
It's slightly X-rated.
That was cool.
Little full frontal.
Was it
flash.
hemp. I remember it like.
No, she had the pillows covering her.
It's forever
she had
burned into my
two
brain.
Pillows. She had two pillows.
It's forever burned into my brain, bro.
She was working the pillows. And
You
in the
fucked
end,
us all over with that
Working
shit.
the pillows. There you go.
Hemp works cut off tank top, right?
Exactly.
Anyways,
You
all right.
remember that. You remember
Like a fucking.
like it was yesterday. So
The long-term memory's good. I don't know about the short-term
so we got
memory. What were we talking
12
about? We were talking about his smuggling days. Come on.
Well, it's okay. We got 12 minutes left, just so we can do our wrap up soon. I'm going to do another round of shout outs, and then we're going to do the personal shout outs. But before that, you got. So you coming back to Colorado anytime soon, or?
February 4th, I fly back in, but I'm not sure where I'm going from there.
Okay.
To be
Well,
honest.
maybe we'll get you
Maybe
back.
something will open up here. Maybe I'll go back to California. I have no clue.
Well, things
Kind
will
of
be.
just.
It's good to be free spirited at that point. You know, you can move around. Because-
I'd rather be in a place
Well, you-
settled
you-
down, to be honest. But
you seem
I
like-
had to move from the house I was in.
Yes.
It got ripped off, and then it got sold.
Seems to me as though whatever you do, you deserve to enjoy it, brother, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure, and like if I get the right format together, we'll get you back on the show. Get you with some other old timers or something, so you can cross-reference each other. And after wait a minute, weren't you with that load back in? Because that's the funny thing is it's really very ingrained in people's heads because it was something that they consumed.
And you know what the best part is?
So like if you're like I remember, and I wasn't even like barely conscious with weed, but I remember Thai weed in 84, 83, 84 in Rhode Island, which came in, and Narragansett Bay was a pretty good spot. So other people, oh yeah, for sure they can like remember.
That's where
to
the
day.
Thai load that I got pop for from the rats. That's where it came into Rhode Island.
Oh really? That's what it was in like 80. This was like the real purple, small, tight buds that were just like
It was like
very
80,
very hashy, like
81
burnt.
when it came in there. It's about 30,000. Wasn't that humongous load, decent
Right.
size?
Not humongous, it's just 30,000.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. It could have even.
You go halfway around the world and
Yeah.
spending.
Yeah,
You know.
you better get a big load.
Yeah, I mean, in those days, the
There's
bankrolls
there's-
were like $1.5 million,
there's-
$2.5 million just to
There's
do the trip,
there's villages to support, for Christ's sake.
and all the crew.
Well, and it'll be like I said. Also, it's going to be interesting to see how the countries that, unfortunately, most of them are not going to be doing much when it comes to cannabis. When it comes to like those places that are in the war-torn zones and stuff, I don't see that bouncing back too quick. But you see like places like Israel and stuff that are kind of leading that whole side of the world in any kind of like showing them what's up. And I think it's the best medicine for those places. So technically, once
I'd like to see India and Nepal go, legal. That would be really something.
There is some preliminary research being done out there. There's some researchers from I believe the state even that are out there trying to monkey around with the Indian government on some different projects. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
And when are we going to see you again?
Well, this
Oh, you didn't pull out your swag. You didn't even pull out your Gallagher moment.
He had one Gallagher moment, and there was no watermelon. What's the
Adam,
story here?
Until about 10 minutes ago, I didn't realize that we were on video. Hi, everybody.
That's why I said Gallagher moment.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Gallagher moments. Smash it. Make rosin out of it with a big hammer. Rosin hammer. The Gallagher rosin hammer.
Well, that's nice, bud.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
And that's...
So Crucial Hemp has this for $700 a pound. Shipped to all 50 states.
listen to you.
That's
Go. It comes just like this, too.
It
Perfectly
does,
packed.
yeah. But it's a little stemmy, you know.
Perfect packed by day.
Yeah, we forgot to get the trimmer crew on it. This is how it's going to come to your house.
Yeah, it's going to say...
Just like this.
Yep. Rope. It's gonna say it says dope and rigging on the side, right? Phoenix dope.
Rope and rigging.
That's
Phoenix.
good. I like that. That's a good hemp.
Yeah, yeah.
It's literally hemp, rope and rigging.
So, Crucial delivers. What can I say? You want Crucial hemp. This is Crucial hemp.
Crucial. Here, you gotta
Yeah.
say it in the mic.
It's
Though.
Crucial hemp, baby.
Crucial delivers.
Yeah, this is about 6-7% CBD, less than 0.3% THC.
with certification.
With certification, we got paperwork for our farm. It's not our farm. I'd like it. Anyways,
Our farm for it.
it's my buddy's farm, and what a good buddy. And he's worked with Colorado Department of Agriculture, and he's got his stuff together pretty good. But everybody kind of dicked him with this whole grow CBD, all female flowers.
Like if you feel that bud here, feel that bud weight wise, you can tell it's got some action in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
there's
plant-
some density there.
it's
Yeah.
density, and on top of that, but it's oily. Cause
So
it's
really,
not like,
you guys that are out there that
even
want
though
to
it's
put.
dry, but it feels got that oily feel.
I just have an
Squeeze
important
it.
message.
Squeeze it.
I have an important message for the community.
Yeah, go for it, dude.
For all you guys that have these hopes and dreams about CBD and stuff, just like there's these old timey farmers in Middle America that are interested in this hemp thing, and just don't fucking blow it for us, man. Have your shit together and have your money together for these people, and actually maybe even consider prepaying them, because this is very unstable. CBD, as you know, is very beneficial. Cannabis in general is very beneficial for human health. We need a lot of it. We can't even supply what our world really needs. But right now, the world doesn't even know what the hell. And in the meantime, we got to sell it. And in the meantime, you don't want to ruin the whole thing for us, because these farmers are really going to help us produce this thing for food, fuel, fiber. Everything that Jack did talk about in the day is going to be made from this. But we don't want
See
to
that
fuck it up.
box would have been made out of it.
I mean, now I got this cardboard
And you
box.
big investment dudes,
Yeah.
talk to some people and put together a factory to process hemp into fiber so
That's the
clothing
thing.
could be made.
Look,
Come on,
There's
it's the U.S.
There's
Let's do
varieties.
it.
You guys want to do your CBD?
50 to 100 million
I'm
mineralogists.
just going to get the cat out of the fucking bag, especially for you
Yeah,
guys
but-
that want to do flipping extracts.
There's plenty
Grow
to
the
be made from
seeds,
it.
sell the seeds, get the CBD flipping combine,
You can
whatever.
say fucking.
Sorry,
can say whatever you want.
I forget, but it's kind of, it makes me a little upset because it's really exciting.
Fire right
It's
there.
fire. It's super exciting.
All right, that's
that
enough of that.
we
enough
have
of that.
hemp.
Enough of that. Enough of that. Ugh.
No,
That okey doke special.
That's that okey doke
Yeah.
special right there.
yeah, $10 a gram.
Boom.
It's
Killing it.
it's
Purple.
going there,
Bro,
Dude,
purple.
it went up.
and that's
Purple,
not.
bro. I know it keeps going up every time you talk to this guy. All right. Well,
we'll
glad
keep
you
it at
had.
7.
I'm glad you get to pull out your Gallagher stuff.
I'm so
Um,
grateful, Adam. Thank
I'm
you.
going to do a quick shout out, and then we're going to do our final shout outs and say goodbye, and then the show's going to be over. That's how it works around here. Right away, though, I want to give a big shout out to our buddies over there at Way to Grow, making it possible for people to cultivate cannabis here with the best quality newts, the best quality lights. They've got, I think they got about 14 years in the game now or something like that. So they're also great knowledge. That's the best part. You can ask these guys anything, and they definitely can help you out. Right now, they were doing a big smart pot sale starting on the 11th, I think. So about another week. 40% off all smart pots, all sizes. So that's good.
Smart pods are the way to go, baby.
Good way to go for this next.
Way to go,
And I think now with
bro.
the new laws here in Colorado, they're gonna be selling a lot bigger pots. They're gonna be going
600 gallons. Don't get anything less than that. All right.
It's going we're going more Cali style. It seems.
600 gallons.
All right, Mr. 600 gallons. It's a little bit overkill, but it's possible.
Not if you're growing 100 little tiny little shitty.
Well, that's not the one. That isn't the plan. I'm saying one plant per
No,
pot. Big
yeah,
ones.
You want the 20 pounders from Grants Pass and those bitches.
Go to waytogrow.net
1,000 gallons.
if you want to check their stuff online. And they got a pretty cool, up-to-date website, too.
Do they have a 1,200 gallon?
They can do whatever size you want.
All right.
Yeah,
Good,
1,200 is
good,
possible. And I want to give a big shout-out to our buddies over at Seeds Here Now. You have to say seeds. Say seeds.
See,
And
Here. You say now.
Now.
Seeds.
here.
Now.
Yeah.
See?
Seed and
Are those the guys with the seeds?
no, yeah, they have seeds. That's a Spanish TH Seeds company. But they also have our buddies from the Seed Company, Sunny Chiba, Mosca, Bog Seeds, who was on the show last week. And I think we have about 30, up to like 35 breeders right now. So these guys, and they're literally the top of the top, which is great. And the best, when we talk about customer service on all our people, these guys are tops, because if you have any problems with your seeds, whatever it is, you just contact them. They'll send you a replacement, no problem. They don't have a problem with that because they understand that things can happen, but they also totally back up every single breeder, and every breeder's, kind of, if there's too many problems with them, they might get booted off his thing. It's happened. It has happened.
That's reputable.
Yeah, he doesn't he can't have too many problems because if he does, it's like, all right, I think you got to move on. And he's managed to get some of the best here in the States. And you can go to Seeds. You can go to seedsherenow.com and check out all the specials and all that because it's literally day by day. They've got all kind of crazy stuff going on, and hit them up. And I want to do a big shout out to New Millennium. He'll be on the show next week with a couple new products. These guys have a great nutrient line, which is based on the seasons and easy to follow, but at the same time, some real dank coming off of it. And they work with like Budswell and a few other products that I always worked with from the beginning. So it's nice that it's not a locked in kind of formula when you can definitely add a few more microbes if you want. You can play around with it, but it's a very good complete formula. And they are newmillenniumnutrients.com if you want to check their stuff out. And like I said, they're going to be next week on the show. And I want to do a big shout out to Growstone. Don't have any more glass to drink, unfortunately.
Ooh.
We
got that.
Yeah, smash it.
Let's just break it in their honor.
Yeah, I'll break it. Smash it. I will.
You need to give up a bad habit anyway. No, I'm just teasing.
No, I do. Yeah, all my broken bongs go to Growstones too. Broken bongs.
What is that, like a $4,000?
And all my bottles for sure. But hit them up at growstone.com if you want to check out their website. They got some great products, all made with recycled glass. And what's cool little factoid.
I actually use some Growstone products, and I have some decent results for sure.
Oh, I'm glad you have.
Yeah.
They have, what they also do, which is crazy, is that their products have fit perfectly within the guidelines of what they needed for the end of runways. So they use that Growstone, sort of granulated Growstone.
Oh, I thought you said runway, honey.
No, not that kind of runway. No. So they're getting airport deals, which is pretty cool.
You should have seen my girlfriend slip.
But they're not gonna give up on us weed people because they know we are their heart and soul of the company. Great products, definitely check them out. And if you're a cocoa grower, they have it already premixed with cocoa, which is good, and their cocoa quality is super fine. So check them out at growstone.com. And our buddies at Incredible Extracts, top quality extracts and top quality edibles.
That's what it looks like?
That's their extracts, yeah. And this is their cannabis infused chocolate with popping bits, which is awesome. Super consistent, which is the best part about their edibles. All labeled with the dosages to tell you what they are. And they got some 300 milligrams and some other. I think they even have 500 milligram bars now too. So they don't all. You got to keep an eye on what you're eating there. But
Mile High Mint.
Mile High Mints are
Welcome
good.
to Colorado, everybody.
Oh man, they're all that pumpkin delight right there. Whew, super dope. Afgado bars are awesome. I mean, there's the Afgados at the bottom. There's another new one there, Winter Mint. I didn't even see that. That's interesting. But yeah, they've always got like I said, the consistency and quality, which is what you're looking for.
Well done.
iloveincredibles.com. Check them out. And shout out to my guys over at Build a Soil, Jeremy, bringing us the best in organics. If you want to do a no-till, you're interested in bokashi, you're interested in some of
the booze blend is really
booze blend is good.
Oh my goodness, you guys!
And
give thanks.
He's got also all your microbials, and if you need to mix up some stuff custom, he can do it for you. And if you finally get to the point where you want to do like some tractor trailer trucks full of stuff, he can do that for you, no problem. That's what he does.
Bean compost.
Everything hard to find,
Oh yeah.
and he can guide you through it, how to use it, which is the best part.
Keep your fingers out of those scissors. They're sharp.
And look, got the Growstone right there, Nat Mix. That's the other product they make, which is the smallest, tiny ones that chops them all up.
Yes.
So we've got Growstone.
Yes,
buildasoil.com for them on the internet, and 855-877-SOIL if you want to talk to Jeremy direct. Super customer service. That guy's a man. And hit him up while he's maybe 5 minutes of downtime. He doesn't have much downtime. It's coming up soon. You'll never get him on the phone. So and last but not least, we got one more. That's it.
That's it.
That was it.
We could leave him with this though.
There it is, Franco. We did the last show for him and this show for him. He's doing good. He's getting in all the shows this month. Bam, Franco.
Thank you, Franco.
I want to say, and that's it. So that was it for show. Okay, so then a big shout out to my beautiful wife, Cece, who is at home with little Nick 'cause he had the sniffles. Didn't get to go to school today. Got to watch TV all day. 2 days in a row. His brain is just melting. But I put him on 80s cartoons, on the 80s cartoon tip, you know what I mean? So before it got all... Cause some of the new ones are just weird, dude. You're like, what is this? Like one in the middle of the thing is like, he's such a dick. I'm like, this is not a kid's cartoon?
There's a lot of butt jokes, too. Like...
Dicks and butt jokes?
Yeah,
strange.
it's kind of strange.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, I stepped out of it after Barney. And I thought
Barney was weird, too.
I thought Dairy named his restaurant
But
after a purple
SpongeBob.
dinosaur for all these years.
Yeah, no, it was... no, he was weird. There's a bunch of them that you're like, weird
Who was weird, the dinosaur or Dairy?
Both, for sure. Big shout out to Andy, who's helped me down at the farm and turned that whole place around, making it awesome. Big shout out to Mom, who's getting to go to Jamaica for a few days while we all watch The Spot, which is nice. Shout out to Rob for bringing her down to Jamaica, you know, and shout out to Rosie down there and Lennox and all the crew. Hopefully she's only spending 4 days. Crazy. I don't know what she's thinking. She's out of her mind. I'm like, 4 days, you know, come on.
4 months.
Next week's show, I promised everybody to tell them what's going on. We're going to have Mr. Frank Gigax in the studio. Anybody who's a longtime listener knows that that's a big deal because Mr. Frank Gigax was pretty well. Well, I'd say he was unknown to most people. To our listeners, he's known because we kind of, I wouldn't say broke a story, but we had a friend who told us a story that was definitely checked on by everybody and was like, "Yep, that's the real deal." And at that moment in time, this guy was kind of gone in the wind. You know, nobody knew where he was. And since that time, he's actually come back to America. Had to go through some legal wranglings and is now available to talk to us. So it's kind of like crazy. It's gonna be a great show. We're gonna definitely extend that one and make it into a major show because this guy's got some awesome techniques and he wrote them all down, made a book. And if you haven't listened to the episode, you might want to go back before next week and look at those episodes. I'm not sure where they are, but I'll have KTI post them, which ones they are exactly. But it's the Underground Bunker episodes. And so we're going to finally talk to the guy himself and not through other people. And we're going to see what
Casey,
information we
the
had.
The whole Nevada business with the volcano and all that.
No, it was a little different, but it was definitely... it was, like I said, it was all in the news, and we got to see what he did, and in more ways than one, where you're like, "Wow, that's some real work done when you couldn't get away with that stuff." You know, we're talking like quarter football field size underground, and you know things that are like, "Ooh, wow, this is some serious, no messing around." You know, so yeah, Mr. Frank Gigax, and I think his daughter's coming in, Christy Gigax, live in the studio. I'm pretty sure Mitch will be here because he's not going to miss this one. So get ready for that one next week. And I thank our guests for coming in and giving us some stories.
It's been fun and an honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Our listeners definitely love wacky old stories, and
Yeah.
I could tell by the responses on there. So, and if anybody got all whacked out in the beginning of the show with the things because things were on and off and whatever, just go back and watch the whole thing again because it'll be posted right after the end of this show. And yeah, maybe you'll catch something you didn't hear in the first time because I know I usually do when I listen to the show. I go, wow, I wasn't even I guess I wasn't listening at that point of my own show because I must have been doing something else.
Tweeting.
Of course. No, I don't tweet. So thank you guys, and thank you, Joel, for jumping in on the sound.
All right, Joel.
Obviously blame him for everything that went wrong. So no,
It was weird.
he was kind of left hanging. The kid just like didn't really tell him what was up properly as usual. Ran off. Kid, come on now. You don't have to run off so fast. You could have stayed for at least 20 minutes or something, right? Maybe next week with Frank, we'll have the kid because the kid might get excited about that one because that was actually that was what was our most popular episode for a long time. So that's why it's one of those interesting ones, and it was pretty much obscure news at that point anyway. Nobody really would have remembered, but since our friend brought it all up, everybody corroborated when we got it's like digging deeper into the thing, and it was pretty interesting stuff. So see you guys next week, and peace.
Practically every one of the top 40 records being played on every radio station in the United States is a communication to the children to take a trip, to cop out, to groove. The psychedelic jackets on the record albums have their own influence.
This is a special question. We don't want you to smoke genetically modified ganja. We want you to smoke the real thing. We want you to smoke the natural herb. Some call it marijuana, some call it sensimedia, some call it lamb's bread, and some people call it ganja.
Okay, I got you. The sound muted.
So there is music that everybody else is hearing. We don't know.
Who knows?
Practically every one of the top 40 records being played on every radio station in the United States is a communication to the children to take a trip, to cop out, to groove. The psychedelic jackets on the record albums have their own influence.
It's funny when you brought up the thing about mushrooms. I wanted to mention this story. I was in Koh Samui for a few weeks. I've been living in Chiang Mai, and I used to run on the beach on Chiang Beach. Yeah, a friend of mine had a resort there called the Island, and so anyway, I saw this little hut, like how in Thailand they have like little hut restaurants. So I went in and had some breakfast, and then I started having mushroom omelet. And I used to run on the beach on Chiang. Started with mushroom omelet. I had the mushrooms all the time. A friend of mine had a resort there. And I thought it was a mushroom omelet. Right? Anyway, it was a magic mushroom omelet. It was a magic mushroom omelet. So after I eat and pay, and I'm walking down the beach, like back to, all of a sudden my legs feel rubbery, and I look out at the ocean, and